Go ahead and subscribe to this channel and enjoy the video, because what you are going to hear is not just a video but a real history story. You're standing barefoot at dawn on the cool stone of a mud brick threshold, the river breeze carrying a thin ribbon of mist across your ankles. Your first hook into this story is simple. Before the desert sun rises high enough to bleach the sky, you already smell the baked sand that's about to test every drop of water inside you. Ancient Egypt looks peaceful in the soft blue of early morning, but the silence is sneaky, crammed with hidden trials that will pounce the moment Ra lifts his blazing crown. You think you're ready? Hold on. Because by the time this single day is over, you'll be begging to trade parchment scrolls for a modern mattress, if you make it that far. The rooster-like cackle you just heard isn't a rooster at all. It's the laugh of a neighbor hauling a basket of grain along the hard-packed street. He's been awake since the moon was still bright, grinding emmer wheat between two stones, muscles humming in a numbing rhythm that would put you to sleep if it weren't so backbreaking. The daily bread doesn't rise without sweat, and the Pharaoh's tax men know exactly how many loaves your village must deliver. Miss today's quota and tomorrow you'll face a scribal ledger that reads like a death sentence, debts measured in lashes or labor on royal tombs. Feel that little spike of dread? Good. It keeps the eyes open, for now. But you're already thirsty. Water jars at every threshold invite quick relief, yet each sip is a gamble. The Nile floods lovingly, but she also drops invisible hitchhikers in the pottery, parasites nimble enough to slip past clay filters. Swallow one careless gulp and you might cradle schistosomiasis in your gut, its eggs carving microscopic trenches through your organs while you smile politely at your host. High cheap thrill, low CPM? Hardly. This is premium pain, ancient style, and it monetizes itself in fever, blood in the urine, and a slow fade from the ledger of the living. Your stomach grumbles for breakfast. You picture honeyed pastries. Forget it. You'll chew a cake of barley dashed with sour beer, because beer isn't a luxury here, it's safer than most water. The sip is warm, flat, and grainy, a comfort so dull it's almost relaxing, a perfect sleepy hook. Easy historical language, right? Take another sip. The sun is climbing. Its first light gold had promise, now it's turning white, then blinding. The crisp edge of sunrise becomes a hammer on your eyelids. You haven't done any real work yet, but the sweat tattooing your back says otherwise. Your task for the morning: join the field gang dredging new irrigation ditches before the soil hardens. Tools: a wooden hoe little stronger than driftwood. Technique: swing, scoop, heave, repeat until your shoulders knot like catgut strings. One overseer strolls by in crisp linen, a flail dangling as casual as a bracelet. He's humming. You slip once, he notes it without turning his head. Second slip and the flail might kiss the back of your legs, not from cruelty, he claims, but from divine order. Pharaoh's crops must flourish so the sun can keep rising. Funny how power justifies everything. Your spine aches. You look for shade. There is none. Only high hooks tugging your eyelids lower. Deep sleep yawns in the corner of your vision, but you can't chase it. It chases you. Pause, feel that? A sudden gust, gritty against your teeth. The camsine, that hot hot desert wind cracking across the delta, arrives without warning. Your skin prickles. Sand grains pinprick your ears, grind into every fold of linen, into that one spot between molars you can never reach with a reed toothbrush. You blink and the world turns sepia. If you own kohl eyeliner, you're lucky, it doubles as natural sunblock and sand shield. But the thick paste stings, and a careless rub could smear it into your eyes, inviting infection. Ophthalmia loves this kingdom. Cataracts move in before middle age like uninvited relatives, and you can't just swipe left. There's a rumor traveling faster than the wind. The high priest of Ammonius is inspecting local granaries at noon. That means perfection everywhere. Roof beams must be straight, seals unbroken, rats nowhere in sight. Rats, those clever freeloaders riding every trade boat from Nubia to Memphis, gnaw into ceiling reeds, dropping ancient droppings straight into open sacks of wheat. One chew, one droplet of disease, and the entire village might dine on the black mystery of bubonic fleas. You didn't think plague was medieval only, did you? Egypt traded spices, ivory, and epidemics with equal flair. But hush. Keep stacking the sacks. The priest's sandals click like the ticking clock you left behind in the 21st century. Hook check, you're still awake, but the monotony thickens. You lift, stack, brush, and lift again until muscle and mind blend into a sleepy drone. The perfect boring history tone, gentle enough for bedtime yet spiked with little scorpion stings of danger so you don't click away. Speaking of scorpions, there's one under that crate. Golden brown, curving tail poised like an ornate question mark. Most stings just burn like jealousy, but some species deliver a venom that locks lungs shut. Your coworker's sandal crushes it casually. He laughs because the goddess circuit protects those who honor Maat. You laugh, too, but maybe for different reasons. By midday the sky is a polished bronze mirror. Stone walls glow, reed roofs sizzle. You retreat into a storeroom, heart thudding. But guess what? It's hotter inside. Clay walls trap the heat like a bread oven. Your sweat can't evaporate, it beads, then streams, then puddles. Ancient Egyptians understood hydration far better than you might assume. They mixed salt with water, chewed natron cubes, anything to reclaim electrolytes. Miss that trick and your muscles seize. Legs cramp. Vision narrows. The perfect moment for a micronap that could slip into eternal rest. The hook clenches. Will you faint or survive? Sleepiest, dream wanderer, if you're drifting happily through this dusty corridor, imagine having a faithful companion whispering strange old stories every single night until your worries doze off. Tap that subscribe button now, and you'll never run out of bedtime wanderings through forgotten ages. Don't hit snooze on curiosity, your next midnight adventure is just one click away. ZZZ. A faint gong echoes, the afternoon ritual begins. Workers shuffle toward a shrine to leave offerings, figs, beer, a crumb of incense. You join, palms up. The attendant sprinkles water scented with lotus and frankincense. One breath of that sweet smoke might be the only luxury scent you meet all day, but hidden inside is benzoin resin that sticks to your lungs like syrup. Chronic incense exposure, Who would think prayer causes respiratory issues? It does, quietly sanding down the edges of breath year after year until a priest wheezes like an old bellows. Still, the scent is hypnotic. Eyes flutter. If boredom had flavor, it would taste like half-burnt frankincense, sweet then bitter, promising then stale. Sleepiest, dream wanderer, if you're drifting happily through this dusty corridor, imagine having a faithful companion whispering strange old stories every single night until your worries doze off. Tap that subscribe button now, and you'll never run out of bedtime wanderings through forgotten ages. Don't hit snooze on curiosity, your next midnight adventure is just one click away. ZZZ. A faint gong echoes, the afternoon ritual begins. Workers shuffle toward a shrine to leave offerings, figs, beer, a crumb of incense. You join, palms up. The attendant sprinkles water scented with lotus and frankincense. One breath of that sweet smoke might be the only luxury scent you meet all day, but hidden inside is benzoin resin that sticks to your lungs like syrup. Chronic incense exposure. Who would think prayer causes respiratory issues? It does, quietly sanding down the edges of breath year after year until a priest wheezes like an old bellows. Still, the scent is hypnotic. Eyes flutter. If boredom had flavor, it would taste like half-burnt frankincense, sweet then bitter, promising then stale. Now the priest speaks of ma'at, harmony. He reminds you that the soul is weighed against a feather when the body dies. He doesn't mention that dehydration or infected cuts are likely to escort your soul to that scale before you hit 45. He also doesn't mention that parasites in your liver might nibble away until the feather looks absurdly heavy by comparison. But ancient Egyptians faced death daily and still planned picnics under date palms. Maybe that's the secret. Embrace the mundane terror until it becomes background hum. You feel it already, the friction of fear smoothing into sleepy sand. Back to work. There's a rumor of gold shipments arriving from Wadi Hammamat. Gold, shimmering promise of wealth, high CPM keyword even in 1500 BCE. But you won't see a single flake. The state melts ingots into amulets for tombs, jewelry for queens, leaf for statues. You could try to pocket a speck. The punishment is amputation, or forced labor hauling stone blocks until your shoulders rot under endless ropes. Fun fact: heavy lifting crews sometimes lubricated sled runners with water to reduce friction. Ingenious, but if you spill too much you just create mud that sucks sandals from feet, leaving soles to bake on hot gravel. Another mini hook. One wrong calculation and your shift doubles. Your eyes burn. Sunlight bouncing off limestone is brighter than a film set floodlight. So workers smear their skin with unguents, sesame oil, morina, beeswax, protective but sticky, which traps dust and turns you into a walking sand cookie. You scratch an itch and raise a welt. The insect inside might be a sandfly bearing leishmaniasis, fatal if untreated, leaving cratered sores that scar deeper than any memory. Often the only cure is patience and the hope of divine mercy. Pharmacists do grind herbs, frankincense, myrrh, pomegranate peel, but dosage is approximate, and side effects lurk in every draught. One man drinks too much mandrake infusion and hallucinates sobuk rising from the river, jaws dripping silver fish. Everyone laughs, but they keep watch in case he wanders into the water. The Nile is gentle until it's not. Crocodiles slide like green logs then snap open with shocking pink maws. Dusk approaches. A purple smear spreads across the horizon. You limp back toward the house, the mud brick walls now radiating the heat they stored all day. Inside is dark, oil lamps flicker. Donkeys bray in distant pens. Someone beats laundry in a basin with lye soap strong enough to eat fingerprints. You sit on a low stool and feel splinters prick your thighs. Dinner: stewed lentils, raw onions, maybe a shred of dried fish that still smells like brine and decay. Protein is precious, and salt even more, worth its weight in copper, pressed into little cakes for wages. Night in Egypt isn't quiet. Crickets trill, hippos grunt, distant drums pulse from a festival beyond town. The thin mat on the roof is your bed because inside is an oven. You climb a reed ladder, stare at constellations the ancients mapped into stories of sky boats and serpents. The breeze at last is cool. Your eyelids sag. But one more hook wriggles, the gentle buzz near your ear. Mosquitoes. Tiny pharaohs of the night, carrying falciparum malaria. They feast until dawn. You swat, roll over, yawn. The stars blur. Your muscles sink into straw. In less than 24 hours you endured scorching sun, disease-laden water, parasitic flies, labor quotas, sacred smoke, heavy taxation, and the constant drumbeat of divine judgment. Imagine doing that for life, without painkillers stronger than willow bark. Would you last? Maybe, if you mastered the rhythm, respected the river, and learned to love the immortality of routine. But chances are by the second week you'd bargain your entire amulet collection for a single evening of air-conditioned silence. Yet there's beauty here, too: sunrise over lotus ponds, the joyful chatter of children molding toy boats from Nile clay, the trance of harp music drifting through date palms. These small luxuries kept Egyptians smiling even when the desert plotted against them. And maybe that's the real secret: endure the harsh to savor the sweet. So as the roof mat cools beneath you and the Nile sighs in the distance, let the slow ripple of boring history lull you the rest of the way down. Allow each dusty detail to settle like silt, softening thoughts, blanketing noise, coaxing breath into deeper, slower currents. Tomorrow the overseer will shout again, the sun will bite again, and the river will return with new gifts and new dangers. But tonight you have survived, barely, and that small miracle is more golden than any pharaoh's tomb treasure. Close your eyes, wanderer. Let ancient Egypt fade into gentle darkness while the present cradles you in a rhythm older than pyramids. Inhale, exhale, dream. The night settles deeper, and the stars over Egypt brighten like polished lapis, but just when you think sleep finally owns you, a sudden slap of cool wind lifts a fringe of your linen wrap. You blink awake to the hush-hush rumor that spirits walk rooftops between the midnight and the dawn, passing messages no scribe can ever capture. Is that tingling on your arms merely night air, or the brush of a bau's wing, the soul bird of someone long gone? You're not sure, but the uncertainty hooks you tighter than any bedtime lullaby. Your pulse slows, curiosity nestling against drowsiness until they feel like twins. Every so often a jackal's distant yip tumbles across the clay roofs, reminder that Anubis patrols unseen alleys, guarding tombs, and maybe poking fun at mortals still awake. You smile into the dark. How strange that a land so full of dangers can feel oddly safe when the moon paints everything silver. Hours slip by. When the faintest pink smudges the east, you stir, joints stiff from straw. Another day arrives, and you're about to learn why yesterday's trials were the easy part. The river hush below swells with voices, its census season. Royal scribes glide in boats, reed pens tucked behind ears, ready to tally grain, livestock, and breathing bodies. A miscount could cost your village its precious scarab token of good standing, a tiny baked clay emblem that means fewer labor drafts for pyramid crews. Miss the quota and next month a barge will arrive, demanding 20 more hands, maybe yours. That threat alone is a hook strong enough to yank anyone straight out of a half-dream. Hours slip by. When the faintest pink smudges the east, you stir, joints stiff from straw. Another day arrives, and you're about to learn why yesterday's trials were the easy part. The river hush below swells with voices, its census season. Royal scribes glide in boats, reed pens tucked behind ears, ready to tally grain, livestock, and breathing bodies. A miscount could cost your village its precious scarab token of good standing, a tiny baked clay emblem that means fewer labor drafts for pyramid crews. Miss the quota and next month a barge will arrive, demanding 20 more hands, maybe yours. That threat alone is a hook strong enough to yank anyone straight out of a half-dream. You hurry down your ladder. Morning rites unfold in a blur, rinse mouth with river water, murmur a quick prayer to Happy so the flood will come gentle, smear yesterday's oil across cracked heels. The taste of natron on your tongue is salty as regret, but it keeps breath fresh in a land where the sun cooks everything into potential stench. Your neighbor, a potter with arms like woven rope, jokes that breath is cheaper than perfume, though even he chews minty marshwort to spare his wife from dawn dragon exhalations. He thrusts a cup of beer into your hands again. Warm, thick, vaguely sweet. You sigh, swallow, and hope the barley gods guard your gut. Today's assignment, mud brick production. Sounds harmless. Until you feel the Nile silt between your toes, silky but heavy, as you stomp alongside 20 villagers in a wide pit. The mud laps your calves, cool at first, then gluey. Straw is tossed in, shards of broken pottery for grit, and you tramp until the mix becomes the perfect dough. Hours pass. Your feet prune, but the sun dehydrates everything from scalp to Achilles. When the foreman finally calls break, each worker rolls a soft ball of sludge, slaps it into a wooden mold, then scrapes the top flat with a reed. Out plops a future house brick, if it survives cracking in the kiln. Many don't. Quality control in ancient Egypt is ruthless. Bricks that split earn the maker an extra shift. You watch your molded block like a new-hatched chick, praying it dries unscathed. High stakes for a lump of mud. Near noon the kiln fires flare, and the air smells like wet earth turning to toast. Sparks spit out, drift, settle on bare arms. Small burns, pinpricks. You flinch. Another worker grins, shows a lattice of old scars along forearms, dragon kisses, he calls them. Part badge of honor, part constant itch in winter. You wonder how many modern desk jobs have dragons that nibble. Probably none. The thought is a tiny bomb, until someone shouts that a scorpion nest has been uncovered under a scrap heap. Suddenly feet stomp mud faster. Nobody wants scorps relocating into sandals. One fellow jumps high and lands hard, crushing a wriggler the size of a baby's finger. The venom may be mild, but mild still means hours of numbing pain, perfect for ruining productivity and sleep in equal measure. A fresh hook, danger in miniature, never far away. When afternoon heat peaks, the overseer grants mercy, 10 minutes shade under a nearby sycamore. You sink against the trunk, heart pounding. A girl about 12 passes with a basket of sycamore figs, offering tiny bursts of sweetness speckled with grit. She teases that foreigners can't handle the crunchy seeds, but you chew bravely, anything to wet the tongue. And speaking of foreigners, word has spread that ships from Byblos are docking downriver, stacked with cedar logs and strange purple shells the Phoenicians claim bleed royal dye. Everyone buzzes with curiosity. Imports spell work, carpenters need cedar, dyers crave murex, scribes want stories. Trade is lifeblood, and parasites piggybacking on rats inside cargo nets are just bonus passengers. One slip in quarantine and plague could bloom again. You tuck the thought away. Bedtime needs its slow burn intrigue. Sunfall finds you back on the roof, legs jelly, arms numb. But the breeze, oh, the breeze, wraps you gentle as linen dipped in lavender oil. A neighbor's mother sings a lullaby to her infant, crooning of lotus ponds and hippo dreams. The tune drifts like incense smoke and settles warm on your eyelids. Yet right when you hover at the edge of real sleep, a trumpet-like blast erupts from the street below. An ox, spooked. The crash of pottery, a curse barked loud enough to startle even Thoth. You jolt upright. Heart racing. Perfect hook. Nobody lasts long in Egypt without mastering surprise alarms. Days blur into a rhythm, brick pit, kiln fires, dust storms, census counts, evening songs. Each chapter threads new hazards, splinters that fester into gangrene, grain silos collapsing in a whoosh that buries adults hip-deep in husks, priests demanding extra offerings when a comet smears the night sky, claiming it's a crocodile god's flaming tongue. But there are comforts too, date honey eaten straight off a palm frond, sweet enough to feel sinful, cool splashes in irrigation canals at dusk, the giggle of toddlers chasing scarab beetles that roll poop balls bigger than their heads. Life, even harsh, finds ways to charm. 3 weeks pass, a blink in desert time, yet your body has changed. Calluses map your palms, a hierarchy of blisters layering like sandstone. You crave beer at sunrise because your brain has linked barley bubbles with survival. You can squat for hours without back pain, trace constellations by name, saw the ship, sopped at the great dog star. Once alien hieroglyphs now tell simple stories. A goose beside a sun means dawn's first offering. A seated man with hand to mouth says, "Eat, rejoice." You read them almost without realizing. Adaptation is the sly tutor of Egypt. She scolds first, then rewards. The flood season looms. Black clouds stack on the horizon like marching soldiers. Villagers chatter excitedly, Happy's gift will blanket fields in fresh silt, seeds will sprout fat. But floods also birth mosquitoes in biblical swarms, and waterborne snakes slip into courtyards at night. One elder mutters about a serpent goddess displeased by recent pyramid tomb robberies. Apparently thieves tunneled through loose shaft stones, filched amulets, and left a guardian statue decapitated. Divine wrath might overflow the riverbanks, he warns. The hook of cosmic punishment grips the village. You lie awake longer these nights, ears tuned for slithering. Every squeak of reed mats sounds like scales. Flood day arrives. Thunderheads roll, lightning jags across violet sky. When rain finally crashes, it's as if the air rips open. Water beats roofs, gushes from gutters carved in mud brick parapets. Streets churn into cocoa-colored currents, carrying husks, straw, and an occasional sandal on wild joyrides. Children shriek with glee, sliding on belly boards. Adults hustle to tie boats to posts, fetch grain sacks higher. You help lash a neighbor's goat to a stair rail before it swims off in panic. In mere hours the Nile's lap-lap becomes a roar. You climb to the roof, knees wobbling, to watch brown waves lick lower walls. Lightning silhouettes pyramids far south, sharp teeth against the black sky, reminding you exactly who built a kingdom on water's fickle mercy. The flood season looms. Black clouds stack on the horizon like marching soldiers. Villagers chatter excitedly, Happy's gift will blanket fields in fresh silt, seeds will sprout fat. But floods also birth mosquitoes in biblical swarms, and waterborne snakes slip into courtyards at night. One elder mutters about a serpent goddess displeased by recent pyramid tomb robberies. Apparently thieves tunneled through loose shaft stones, filched amulets, and left a guardian statue decapitated. Divine wrath might overflow the riverbanks, he warns. The hook of cosmic punishment grips the village. You lie awake longer these nights, ears tuned for slithering. Every squeak of reed mats sounds like scales. Flood day arrives. Thunderheads roll, lightning jags across violet sky. When rain finally crashes, it's as if the air rips open. Water beats roofs, gushes from gutters carved in mud brick parapets. Streets churn into cocoa-colored currents, carrying husks, straw, and an occasional sandal on wild joyrides. Children shriek with glee, sliding on belly boards. Adults hustle to tie boats to posts, fetch grain sacks higher. You help lash a neighbor's goat to a stair rail before it swims off in panic. In mere hours the Nile's lap-lap becomes a roar. You climb to the roof, knees wobbling, to watch brown waves lick lower walls. Lightning silhouettes pyramids far south, sharp teeth against the black sky, reminding you exactly who built a kingdom on water's fickle mercy. At the flood's peak, you spot clumps of bright green, water lettuce tangled around something pale. The current bumps it against a stair and leaves it bobbing, a half-drowned cobra, body bloated, eyes glazed. Even in death its hood seems poised to strike. You shiver. Omen? Maybe. Or maybe just nature's trash day. Still, stories spread by breakfast, and the priest calls for extra incense. Better to bribe the gods before they ask for interest. As waters recede, fertile silt coats everything like gray velvet. Farming frenzy ignites. You are assigned to a barley crew trudging behind plows drawn by smelly cows. The wooden plowshare gouges ridges. Your job is simple: scatter seed, tamp with feet, chant to keep rhythm. But the mud grabs ankles. Each step is a tug-of-war. After hours the chant morphs into delirious hums. Sun glints off water in the furrows, dazzling until your eyes tear. If you tilt your head just right, each furrow becomes a mirror of clouds, fluffy ships sailing across the soil. A sleepy hallucination? Perhaps. But it's beautiful, too, and it lingers when you finally collapse under an acacia for lunch. Here's a weird history snack. Field workers sometimes carried onion bulbs not for eating but for smelling. The strong aroma supposedly woke the senses and repelled evil spirits. You give it a try, smashing a bulb under your nose. The sting clears sinuses faster than modern menthol, and you cough yourself awake. Not pleasant. But now you're alert enough to notice movement by the riverbank, a group of Medjay, Nubian mercenaries in leopard skin kilts, marching north. Rumor says they hunt tomb raiders. Rumor also says they sometimes look for conscripts. You crouch lower behind the acacia, heart thudding. If they need extra spears, any able-bodied laborer could vanish from field to frontier post in a single afternoon. Another hook jerks you from drowsy comfort. In Egypt, fate drafts you when it wants. Night comes mellow. The village hosts a flood thanks feast. Torches flicker, drums pulse, beer flows. You chew grilled Nile perch, peppered with cumin, its flesh flaking like warm clouds. Children dance with palm frond headdresses. One old man breathes through a bone flute shaped like a heron, coaxing notes that make goosebumps goosebumpier. For a fleeting moment labor and hardship evaporate, replaced by laughter that jangles like bronze bells. You think, maybe, just maybe, you could last here after all, if you learned the rhythm of feast and famine, of toil and trance. But don't relax too soon. Because a messenger arrives panting, announcing that the Royal Corvée needs 50 men for quarry duty at Tura limestone cliffs. Departure, sunrise. Names will be drawn at dawn. Your legs tingle. Sleep now? How, with that sword hanging? Under a restless moon you pace the roof. What's quarry duty exactly? Swing a copper pick in blinding glare, carve blocks heavier than an ox, haul them on sledges greased with animal fat. Heat like a kiln, dust like chalk, hours measured by the overseer's water clock. And scorpion nests between stones. Workers sometimes wedge lumps of gypsum in pick scars to keep chippings from flying into eyes, makeshift goggles of pain. Hook, imminent misery. But there's equal legend. Quarrymen see visions in the chalk haze, statues half-formed rising from the cliff face, gods whispering through hammer strikes. Some claim they find fossils of sea shells, proof the desert was once an ocean. Those shells become good luck tokens, tucked into loincloths. Dreams among the dust. Dawn horn blast shakes the village. People gather in plaza, each stepping forward when a scribe calls a number etched on pottery shards. Your shard reads 93, only first 50 go. Tear in throat. The scribe shuffles shards, reads swift as a falcon. 47, 48, 49, 50. He stops. Breath you didn't realize you held finally escapes. Saved, this time. But your friend the potter is chosen. He shrugs, nonchalant, but fear flashes in his eyes. You clasp forearms, wish him strength. Part of you is ashamed at relief. That guilt will cradle you tonight, maybe soften your mattress of straw into nails. Ancient life tests not only body but conscience. Days drift on. You weave baskets, help mend a collapsed reed roof, practice reading ostraca shards under candlelight, tracing ink with fingertip until symbols dance. One evening, the temple scribe notices your curiosity and invites you to watch him copy spells onto papyrus. He grinds soot and gum into ink, trims a reed pen, and swirls glyphs as effortlessly as breathing. He explains that every sign has magic. Write a crocodile poorly and the river beasts grow offended. Write bread too thin and next harvest shrivels. Words, he says, are living statues. You lean closer, mesmerized. Another hook disguised as education, your brain buzzes happily in the lamplight. Learning is a drug, and tonight you sip it free. Weeks whirl. You witness a mummification, distant relative of a neighbor, modest wealth. The embalmers work in an open courtyard, breeze carrying resin smell like melting pine. They remove organs, rinse cavity with palm wine, pack natron. It looks gruesome yet strangely clinical. You're struck by their steady calm. To them, death's just a doorway you prep for like a trip. Hook, mortality distilled into craft. Later that night, images of linen-wrapped fingers slide into dreams. You wake sweating, but also sobered. Egyptians spend more effort on the afterlife than most spend on living. Maybe that perspective is why they endure. Food for sleepy thought. Days drift on. You weave baskets, help mend a collapsed reed roof, practice reading ostraca shards under candlelight, tracing ink with fingertip until symbols dance. One evening, the temple scribe notices your curiosity and invites you to watch him copy spells onto papyrus. He grinds soot and gum into ink, trims a reed pen, and swirls glyphs as effortlessly as breathing. He explains that every sign has magic. Write a crocodile poorly and the river beasts grow offended. Write bread too thin and next harvest shrivels. Words, he says, are living statues. You lean closer, mesmerized. Another hook disguised as education, your brain buzzes happily in the lamplight. Learning is a drug, and tonight you sip it free. Weeks whirl. You witness a mummification, distant relative of a neighbor, modest wealth. The embalmers work in an open courtyard, breeze carrying resin smell like melting pine. They remove organs, rinse cavity with palm wine, pack natron. It looks gruesome yet strangely clinical. You're struck by their steady calm. To them, death's just a doorway you prep for like a trip. Hook, mortality distilled into craft. Later that night, images of linen-wrapped fingers slide into dreams. You wake sweating, but also sobered. Egyptians spend more effort on the afterlife than most spend on living. Maybe that perspective is why they endure. Food for sleepy thought. Seasons shift. The inundation shrinks, winter chill sneaks in, crisp enough that morning breaths puff like tiny ghosts. You're weaving mats indoors when news ripples that the pharaoh's wife bore a son. Nationwide holiday. Every village carves little clay dolls, lights extra oil lamps, sacrifices geese if they can spare. Celebration also means higher taxes next season. Royal nursery needs gold rattles, after all, but for now, joy. Under starlight you join a circle chanting lullabies in honor of the newborn. The melody loops until words melt into hum, hum melts into hush, hush sinks you toward slumber, deeper, slower. Time telescopes. By now you navigate bazaars like a native, haggling cinnamon sticks from Somali traders, trading worn sandals for beads made of faience blue as twilight. You've learned to read weather in a dust devil's twist, to gauge cobra mood by hood spread angle, to cut papyrus stalks without slicing fingers. You might even last more than a day, maybe a lifetime, if fate stays kind. Yet Egypt always hides one more challenge behind the next dune. It arrives in the form of a letter, sealed with black wax, summons to attend the royal capital for brick inspector duty. Evidently your bricks earned fame for fewest cracks. Honor. But also peril. Travel an unfamiliar road, cross desert, risk bandits. You accept. The hook is irresistible. Caravan day comes. You mount a donkey, a jolt to tailbone instantly regretted. Sand sea rolls ahead, dunes jagged as broken gold. Heat dances above them like spun glass. Guide warns that mirages lure travelers off track. Follow the rightmost star of Saw's belt after dusk, he advises, or you'll wander in circles until vultures mistake you for lunch. Journey tests everything you've learned, ration water, wrap face, sleep in short bursts under goat hair tents. One night a sandstorm slams camp, grains needle through cloth, scour skin raw. You crouch with donkey, heart drumming, each gust a roar like 1,000 buffalo. When calm returns, half the tents stand shredded. Yet dawn reveals the desert glittering, every dune crusted with crystals of frozen dew. Beauty follows brutality, a cycle older than the Sphinx. The capital overwhelms senses, temples towering like mountains of alabaster, avenue of ram-headed sphinxes, incense thick as stew, clatter of copper bells on chariot horses. You submit bricks for inspection. High official taps each with bronze rod, nods briskly. You pass. Payment, a lapis amulet of a protective eye, plus a handful of debons, copper rings you can trade for linen, beer, maybe your own goat. Pride warms chest. That evening, reclining on a borrowed roof, you study your reflection in a polished copper mirror. The face staring back is leaner, brow lined, eyes bright. Not the you who stumbled half asleep into Egypt weeks ago. You survived sunscorch, parasites, floods, drought threats, scorpion nests, desert storms. Would you last a whole lifetime? Unknown. But you lasted more than a day, more than many outsiders manage. The desert tightened you into rawhide and then lacquered you in resilience. And somewhere along that sun-cracked path, the boring history you sought for sleep turned vibrant, alive, oddly soothing. Now, as cool night once more slides over limestone rooftops and temple drums fade, you lie back on woven mat. Heartbeat slows to a hush. The Nile's lullaby is distant here, but the capital has its own hush swish, palm leaves rustling like soft applause, distant priest chanting to moon goddess Kansu. You feel each sound blur at the edges. Breathing eases. Muscles drip into stillness. Tomorrow brings new hooks, perhaps a scribe apprenticeship offer, perhaps plague boat rumors, but those tales can wait. For now, let the long ribbon of Egypt curl around your mind, warm and drowsy as fresh bread. Let each dusty footstep dissolve, one by one, until only gentle dark remains. Sleep, wanderer, under the same sky that watched pyramids rise, and dream in the language of stars and sand. You wake to a hush so complete it feels like sound itself took the night off. For one slow heartbeat you forget where you are, roof, reed mat, copper skyline, then the smell of warm beer drifting up an alley tugs you back. The capital is stirring, and so must you. A copper clapper clangs from the temple district, calling scribes to dawn prayers, and you roll to your feet, knees crackling like old papyrus. Today, the overseer of royal storehouses has hired you to inspect shipments of cedar arriving from Byblos. You expected bricks forever, fate apparently rewrites scripts on a whim. At the quay the scene blazes with motion, barefoot dockhands hauling rope nets pregnant with resin-sweet logs, sailors shouting in Phoenician rasps, cats weaving between stacking planks like striped smoke. One cat stops, fixes you with gold eyes, then trots off as if satisfied that humans have things under control. Your job seems easy, tap each cedar with an iron spike, listen for hollow thunks that betray rot or termites. But the sun scalds the riverfront and tar from Hull seam steams up in no stinging waves. Soon sweat trickles down your back like tiny rivers racing to the Beltline Delta. Every third log you lift drops a splinter you barely feel until later, when the flesh puffs and reddens. Cedar perfumes the air so richly you half believe you're breathing through honeycomb, but that sweetness also hides tiny spores itching for a lung to colonize. Nothing is free in Egypt, not even scent. Mid-morning, a commotion erupts, two sailors wrestling over a lost dice game smash straight into a pile of stacked logs. The tower wobbles like a drunk stork, then collapses. You dive away, heart hammering, while cedar beams crash with pops that echo like distant thunder. A log the width of a man's torso rolls within inches of your ankle before settling, harmless, almost. Hook tightens, one turn of chance and you'd be learning afterlife geography from Anubis in person. Dockhands right the mess, cursing in 3 languages, and you go back to tapping, ears still ringing with what-ifs. Your job seems easy, tap each cedar with an iron spike, listen for hollow thunks that betray rot or termites. But the sun scalds the riverfront and tar from Hull seam steams up in no stinging waves. Soon sweat trickles down your back like tiny rivers racing to the Beltline Delta. Every third log you lift drops a splinter you barely feel until later, when the flesh puffs and reddens. Cedar perfumes the air so richly you half believe you're breathing through honeycomb, but that sweetness also hides tiny spores itching for a lung to colonize. Nothing is free in Egypt, not even scent. Mid-morning, a commotion erupts, two sailors wrestling over a lost dice game smash straight into a pile of stacked logs. The tower wobbles like a drunk stork, then collapses. You dive away, heart hammering, while cedar beams crash with pops that echo like distant thunder. A log the width of a man's torso rolls within inches of your ankle before settling, harmless, almost. Hook tightens. One turn of chance and you'd be learning afterlife geography from Anubis in person. Doc hands right the mess, cursing in 3 languages, and you go back to tapping, ears still ringing with what-ifs. Late afternoon, a messenger finds you. The palace architect wishes to meet the brickmaker who passed his inspection. You swallow. An audience at the Mansion of Plans means opportunity, or conscription. The architect's villa stands behind lotus ponds shimmering under netted dragonflies. Inside, a breeze smelling of chilled pomegranate wafts through lattice screens. He studies you with eyes sharp as awls, then surprises you. He wants oversight on a new workers' village near the Valley of the Kings. Better housing, he says, reduces sickness, boosts output. Your bricks, apparently, crack less. You nod, throat dry. Travel again, responsibility again, danger again, all wrapped in flattery thick as date syrup. That night, instead of sleeping, you wander the riverbank, letting moonlight trace silver ripples around your toes. A bark drifts past carrying musicians, soft harp notes float over water, each pluck a feather brushing the mind. The melody lulls, but also pricks, because tomorrow you leave on another road, and the Nile's lullaby here will be a memory. You pocket a pebble smooth as moonlight, a small anchor against homesickness you don't yet feel. Before dawn, you join a caravan of royal supply carts. Wheels rattle like bone dice on limestone, camels grunt, and you bounce atop sacks of lentils destined for valley cruise. Desert spreads in pale lavender as sun edges up. The guide points out distant ruins, crumbled fortresses from forgotten dynasties. Each ruin is a silent warning that power, like mud bricks, eventually cracks under enough sun. You chew on that thought as dunes march by. Noon sand radiates so fiercely your shadow hides under your sandals. You wrap a damp cloth over your mouth, exhale turns to steam instantly. Air feels chewable. Somewhere a vulture circles, patient and curious. When evening cool descends, caravan halts beside an oasis cluster of dum palms. Water mirrors the first star. You drink slowly, oasis pools teem with larvae, but the taste is ambrosia after the road. A merchant shares dried figs, you trade him one smooth cedar chip for 3 pieces. High finance. As fireflies blink around reeds, he recounts a tale of a Syrian glassmaker who discovered clear glass by accident, hot sand, boat ash, luck. You store that nugget. Trivia tonight becomes barter tomorrow. Stories are coins that never tarnish. At dawn, limestone cliffs rear up like titans guarding secrets. Tents pepper the valley floor, stone cutters camps. You shake hands with foremen, inspect kiln sites, test local clay, sketch drainage ditches so seasonal flash floods won't melt half-finished huts. The work thrills you more than you expected. Every brick you approve becomes part of someone's roof, someone's dream of modest comfort. Yet the valley hums with another energy, the hush of tombs under construction. Each chisel strike on bedrock reverberates with eternity, and night winds seem to whisper the pharaoh's future name though he still breathes palace air miles away. Weeks blur into mortar dust clouds. You juggle supply counts, train novices to wedge straw joints tight, stop a fire outbreak when a kiln chimney cracks. One dawn, you wake to shouting, "Scout spotted tomb robbers near a shaft." Panic surges. You help muster a torch party, hearts galloping through chest cages. In the narrow ravine, you find nothing but dropped ropes and boot prints. Yet the fear lingers like smoke long after torches die. Security doubles, workers glance over shoulders, even the fearless sculptors mutter prayers beneath breath. Hooks everywhere, danger seen and unseen. A month in, an epidemic flares, red rash fever racing through lower camp. You've watched parasite fevers before, but this one blitzes bodies within days. Healers burn frankincense lumps bigger than fists, smear salves of honey and moldy bread on sores. Some recover, others fade like ink left in sun. You help dig 4 graves by the 17th sunrise, hands blistered, heart heavier than any brick. That night, lying on a new roof you helped build, grief wraps you cold. Yet the sky spills meteors, silver sparks scribing hope across black. You count each streak as a vow to endure, just as Egyptians always have. Work continues, Egypt never halts. You supervise plasterers smoothing walls, watch potters stamp storage jars with the architect's sigil, sign papyrus tallies until your wrist throbs. One evening the architect arrives, cloaked in travel dust. He tours the village, nods approval, then invites you to dinner under a pomegranate arbor. Roast duck, melon slices, wine from Delta vines so sweet the tongue hums. He praises your diligence but warns of budget cuts. If productivity dips, housing extras vanish. The message is polite, but clear as desert sky, results or ruin. Pressure tightens like a crocodile jaw. You trim excess, shorter lunch breaks, stricter clay mixing ratios, curfews to curb ale brawls. Morale dips, cracks threaten bricks again. So you trade more stories for motivation, promise bonuses of festival bread, organize loot nights, ask local priest to bless kills. Slowly the village hum steadies. Brick breakage falls. Sickness wanes. The architect's courier brings word, the project may gain extra funding after all. One afternoon, wind shifts and carries sweet myrrh, royal entourage approaching to inspect progress. Panic sparks. You dash from hut to hut, wiping smudges, aligning brick stacks to army precision, coaching workers to bow just low enough. The retinue arrives, chariots gleaming, banners snapping, trumpets brassy. A prince steps out, eyes rimmed in coal, skin gleaming with almond oil. He tours, gestures, says little. But when he stops before a newly finished house, he traces a brick seam and nods, the subtlest gesture, but thunderous reward. You exhale months of tension in one breath. That evening the village cooks slaughter a goat, spice stew heavy with coriander, share bread baked on fresh lotus leaves. Laughter arcs through dusk, bronze cymbals clink, a girl balances a pot on her head while spinning to drumbeats, skirts blurring sunflower yellow. You watch firelight flicker on faces you've come to know, stone sawyers scarred by shards, basket weavers with papyrus threads forever clinging to hair, a scribe apprentice who can now write your name in elegant looped glyphs. You realize you've become part of their tapestry. One afternoon, wind shifts and carries sweet myrrh, royal entourage approaching to inspect progress. Panic sparks. You dash from hut to hut, wiping smudges, aligning brick stacks to army precision, coaching workers to bow just low enough. The retinue arrives, chariots gleaming, banners snapping, trumpets brassy. A prince steps out, eyes rimmed in kohl, skin gleaming with almond oil. He tours, gestures, says little. But when he stops before a newly finished house, he traces a brick seam and nods, the subtlest gesture, but thunderous reward. You exhale months of tension in one breath. That evening the village cooks slaughter a goat, spice stew heavy with coriander, share bread baked on fresh lotus leaves. Laughter arcs through dusk, bronze cymbals clink, a girl balances a pot on her head while spinning to drumbeats, skirts blurring sunflower yellow. You watch firelight flicker on faces you've come to know, stone sawyers scarred by shards, basket weavers with papyrus threads forever clinging to hair, a scribe apprentice who can now write your name in elegant looped glyphs. You realize you've become part of their tapestry. As the year cycles, the valley's tomb corridors inch deeper, walls bloom with star maps and boat journeys and spells that open mouths of statues. You visit sometimes, marveling at blue's mine from Sinai, green's ground from malachite. In lamplight the pigments look wet, alive. One artisan jokes that when living eyes close forever, these painted eyes keep watch. You feel the truth ripple through you like cool Nile current. Seasons shift again. The inundation predicted by priests arrives early, catching everyone mid-harvest blueprint. You rally crews to build dikes of reed and mud around the workers' huts, stacking sandbags as frogs sing riotously in rising pools. For 2 days rain hammers cliffs, turning dust to sludge, but your dikes hold. Brick walls remain upright, kills survive. When waters sink, lotus bulbs sprout along dike edges, spiking the air with faint almond scent. Disaster averted becomes beauty grown. Word spreads back to the capital that the brick chief saved royal assets. Letters bearing the pharaoh's cartouche arrive, gifting gold rings, 2 donkeys, and permission to erect a modest house in Thebes should you return. You read the decree aloud by torchlight, voice wobbling with disbelief. Workers cheer, your win feels like theirs. Late that night, alone on a ridge, you hold the decree against a sky ablaze with desert stars and let grateful tears roll, evaporating before they mark the papyrus. Years float by in swift currents. You oversee expansion of 3 more villages, mentor a generation of brick makers, consult on ventilation shafts for tombs so deep you swear your ears pop. You survive 2 fevers, 1 scorpion sting, 1 flash flood, and a brush with bandits whose arrows missed by heartbeats. You lose friends to accidents, gain godchildren when families name toddlers after you. You witness burial of the pharaoh whose tomb you indirectly helped build. You kneel as his gilded bark drifts down the Nile, drums echoing grief so vast it seems to bend moonlight. Finally, older than you ever dreamed you'd live, you stand on a rooftop again, knees creaking, gaze tracing Orion over the horizon. The wind carries faint scent of cedar still, though shipments now come from distant forests you'll never walk. You clutch the lapis amulet from your first capital pay and smile. You did last here, day upon day, year upon year, until Egypt carved your name into her story like a chisel writes limestone. And you learned her greatest secret: hardship can rock you to sleep as gently as lullabies, if you let the rhythm guide your heartbeat. So now, dear listener, sink with me into that rhythm one last time. Picture the Nile under moon, wide and dark, mirroring constellations like a second sky. Hear water kiss the banks, hush hush, hush hush, steady as breaths in slumber. Feel warm brick beneath your back, rough but familiar. Smell faint resin of torchlight, sweet grass of woven mat. Let each distant drumbeat from a festival across the river mark another footstep away from waking thought. The past has walked you a long road, it offers rest now, wrapped in linen nightfall, sown with lotus-scented dreams. The years keep unwinding like a papyrus roll, and each fresh loop of Egypt's story slides around you with practiced grace. New pharaoh, new cartouche, same golden sun, only the regnal name changes, while the river stays stubborn as ever, cutting its blue swath between desert cliffs that shine like copper bowls at noon. You are older now, your beard shot with salt, but your eyes still catch detail the way mud catches footprints. Another dawn finds you leaning on the low parapet of your modest house in Thebes, balancing fresh flatbread on your arm. The bread steam curls upward and dissolves in cool air, and for an instant you imagine it writing an invisible hieroglyph to mark the centuries, a swirl that means time flows. Down in the alley, a boy chases a hoop of goat bone with a reed stick, shrieking laughter. The sound knocks loose a memory of your own first months in Egypt, how the very smell of wet clay felt strange, how the sun felt personal, like it knew your name and enjoyed leaning right against your back. Now heat is a familiar cousin, you nod whenever it arrives, no anger left to spare. Yet a private hook still tugs any time the desert wind shifts suddenly, hinting that surprises come packaged inside ordinary days. Take this morning, for instance. You expected a quiet stroll to the kiln yard, but a royal herald appears instead, clothed in shimmering linen the color of ripened wheat. He calls every experienced builder to the temple courtyard. The new pharaoh has decided to raise a grand pylon at Karnak, bigger than any before. The project list unrolls like a farmer's dream: massive sandstone blocks, cedar scaffolds, copper chisels, and bricks, bricks, bricks. Your joints ache even imagining the heft, but the thrill of creation lights sparks behind tired eyes. Gentle boredom? Maybe later. First the hook. Can a man in his twilight years still shape stone dreams? You accept. The herald presses a clay token into your palm, stamped with the eye of Horus, royal authorization. It's warm from the sun, it pulses almost. That afternoon you visit the quarry teams already chipping blocks under a searing sky. Dust veils everything in apricot haze, each hammer strike echoes between cliffs like a falcon's cry. You pass a young mason rubbing grit from swollen knuckles. He grins despite the pain, because greatness is contagious. You remember being that hungry. Evenings become planning marathons, measuring walls with knotted cords, reciting block counts like lullabies, debating mortar ratios by flickering oil lamps until shadows swirl across drafting boards. For every argument you settle, another arises, yet the rhythm soon rocks everyone into smooth coordination: swing, notch, raise, set. It's a choir of labor, voices and tools harmonizing into something bigger than lungs and muscles. In that thrum of purposeful noise, you feel years fall away like dusty wrappings from a mummy. Hook again, work is the tonic that keeps hearts beating louder than age. You accept. The herald presses a clay token into your palm, stamped with the eye of Horus, royal authorization. It's warm from the sun, it pulses almost. That afternoon you visit the quarry teams already chipping blocks under a searing sky. Dust veils everything in apricot haze, each hammer strike echoes between cliffs like a falcon's cry. You pass a young mason rubbing grit from swollen knuckles. He grins despite the pain, because greatness is contagious. You remember being that hungry. Evenings become planning marathons, measuring walls with knotted cords, reciting block counts like lullabies, debating mortar ratios by flickering oil lamps until shadows swirl across drafting boards. For every argument you settle, another arises, yet the rhythm soon rocks everyone into smooth coordination, swing, notch, raise, set. It's a choir of labor, voices and tools harmonizing into something bigger than lungs and muscles. In that thrum of purposeful noise, you feel years fall away like dusty wrappings from a mummy. Hook again, work is the tonic that keeps hearts beating louder than age. But grand dreams attract grand obstacles. 2 weeks in, a tremor rattles the escarpment at dusk. Stone chips cascade, scaffolds tremble. Workers scatter like startled swifts, you brace against a column, pulse thudding. The quake subsides, leaving hairline fractures in half-finished blocks. The overseer curses Seth's meddling. You huddle by torchlight auditing damage, adjusting plans, mapping patches. Some nights you taste dust even in dreams, feel stone rumble under ribs. Yet dawn after dawn, you climb back up, palms smoothing mortar seams, whispering to sandstone, "Hold for me, just hold." Midway through the project, a festival swells across Thebes. The Opet procession rolls from Karnak to Luxor, priests ferrying bark shrines of Ammonius down the avenue flanked by ram-headed sphinxes. Trumpets blare, dancers spin, drums pound deep as heartbeats. You pause brick tallies long enough to watch gilded barges sail the river, their hulls shimmering like molten sunrise. Crowds press close, incense fogging the embankment until everyone smells like sweet myrrh and sweat. Children squeal when acrobats flip between floats, elders murmur blessings into the dust. The whole city thrums with life strong enough to drown any worry, and in that roar you catch the undertow of something gentle, a communal lullaby, promising that after celebration, peaceful night will come. Peace, though, is slippery. Not a month later, plague rumors slither along the streets, a coughing sickness upriver, maybe spreading. You tighten sanitation at brick pits, order extra lime wash for water jars, teach workers to boil reeds for brushes. Some laugh at the caution, gods guard the faithful, they insist. You only nod, remembering fevers that took comrades years ago. Quietly, you stash dried mint, onion bulbs, labels for quarantine huts. Hooks aren't always noise, sometimes they're silent footsteps of potential doom. Days stretch into seasons. The pylon crawls upward, layer by layer, until its shadow crosses half the courtyard at dawn. Watching that line of shade drift each morning becomes a private clock, progress measured in darkness receding. Your beard is grayer now, fingers cramp when night air cools, but calluses keep splitting, rebuilding, tougher each cycle. One chilly dawn you drop a trowel, it clatters loud, and the young apprentice offers to finish your row. Humbling and liberating. You guide his hands, show him how to butter mortar thin and even, then step back as he takes the rhythm. Transferring craft is another form of immortality, you realize, and maybe less exhausting than wrestling stones yourself. Yet you still climb the scaffold sometimes, if only to feel wind at that height. From atop the half-finished pylon, Egypt spreads like a tapestry, green river ribbon, tawny dunes, white sail triangles gliding downstream, temple roofs glittering like beetle shells. You watch caravans raising dust plumes on far horizons, you watch clouds as thin as ostrich feathers drift toward Nubia. And in the hush between hammer echoes, you feel small, but in the best way, woven into a pattern that began long before your first breath and will outlast the pylon's granite. One sunset, as crews coil ropes for the night, a courier arrives with news carved in wax. The prince who once inspected your bricks has ascended the throne. Coronation rites commence within the month. All major works must pause for lavish ceremonies. Some supervisors groan, deadlines stretch already, but you sense opportunity. A new pharaoh means new patronage, new building sprees. More bricks, more stories. The hook resets, fresh chapter. Preparations swirl, dye vats bubble purple for royal banners, bakers knead honey loaves large as shields, stonemasons polish obelisks. You organize temporary seating banks along processional roads, bricks stacked quick but snug, each stamped with the new Horus name. During rehearsals, you catch glimpses of exotic envoys, Libyan chieftains, Mycenaean traders, night-skinned dancers from Punt, each one a walking encyclopedia of secrets you'll never finish reading. The world funnels into Egypt's heart whenever crowns change. Coronation Day dawns beneath copper clouds. Trumpets fling sunlight into the sky. You stand among thousands, leaning on a cedar staff engraved with your family seal, gift from your first quarry crew. When the pharaoh's litter glides past, borne by 6 white bulls, you bow until vertebrae creak. But as you rise, your eyes lock with the monarch's for a blink, kohl-rimmed, sharp, yet oddly amused, as if he remembers the brick chief who saved that workers' village years back. True or imagined, the spark warms your chest. Festivities thunder on for 7 days. Torchlit banquets sprawl across lotus-decked barges. Storytellers weave myths so mesmerizing that even crocodiles seem to float closer just to listen. Amid laughter and harp music, your mind drifts, lulled by wine and drumbeats. You think about the years behind, the narrow misses, the friendships forged in kiln smoke, every dawn where you doubted you'd last till noon. Each memory slots into place like a brick in an endless wall, holding up something invisible and precious, your own quiet monument. Eventually the city exhales, celebrations cooling to embers. Work resumes. The pylon's apex nears, final blocks wait on sledges. On placement day, you climb first, guiding the capstone into its cradle while choirs chant hymns that bounce off sandstone in waves warm as blankets. When the block slides home with a deep, satisfying thunk, a hush falls. You stretch your palm across the joint, solid, steady, certain. A swallow darts overhead, chirps, and the crew erupts in cheers. Someone lifts you onto broad shoulders despite protest. You laugh until tears wet dust on your cheeks. Another hook, but this one is triumph rather than peril. Night drops velvet over Karnak, and lanterns gleam along the pylon's new stairs. You linger in the courtyard long after others shuffle off to beer and sleep. Torches flicker, throwing giant brick shadows that stretch toward the sacred lake. You trace those shadows, feeling them blur into the calm water, feeling time stretch thin. And a thought creeps soft as reed rustle, maybe the last hook isn't action, but acceptance. Maybe climax is simply letting go while everything you built keeps standing. Eventually the city exhales, celebrations cooling to embers. Work resumes. The pylon's apex nears, final blocks wait on sledges. On placement day, you climb first, guiding the capstone into its cradle while choirs chant hymns that bounce off sandstone in waves warm as blankets. When the block slides home with a deep, satisfying thunk, a hush falls. You stretch your palm across the joint, solid, steady, certain. A swallow darts overhead, chirps, and the crew erupts in cheers. Someone lifts you onto broad shoulders despite protest. You laugh until tears wet dust on your cheeks. Another hook, but this one is triumph rather than peril. Night drops velvet over Karnak, and lanterns gleam along the pylon's new stairs. You linger in the courtyard long after others shuffle off to beer and sleep. Torches flicker, throwing giant brick shadows that stretch toward the sacred lake. You trace those shadows, feeling them blur into the calm water, feeling time stretch thin. And a thought creeps soft as reed rustle, maybe the last hook isn't action, but acceptance. Maybe climax is simply letting go while everything you built keeps standing. You return to your house, slip onto the rooftop. The city sings low lullabies, distant hammer taps, donkey brays, a mother soothing a colicky babe. You lie back on your mat, fingers laced over chest, eyes on Orion ascending. Cool breeze smells of silt and burnt sugar from late-night date vendors. Your joints ache in symphony, but your heart beats slow and smooth, like oars creasing mirror-still water. You picture tomorrow, perhaps teaching apprentices how to read weather in mortar-drying times, perhaps strolling to the river market for fresh perch, perhaps no heavy lifting at all, just stories swapped for figs under a tamarisk's shade. Whatever comes will find you ready, or ready enough. Egypt taught you resilience flavored with patience, spiced by curiosity. You can almost hear her voice now, low as temple stone cooling, rest. The bricks are steady. The walls know your name. So you obey. The last furnace of worry dies out. Muscles soften. Breath slips into the easy meter of deepening sleep. Inhale through sun-baked memories, exhale through lotus-scented dreams. The pylon towers steady in darkness, guardian of countless stars. The Nile murmurs somewhere below, repeating a word older than language, something that sounds like hush. And there, wrapped in that ancient lullaby, you float free of weight, free of hooks, free of heat, into a quiet older than pyramids. A faint flutter of wings tickles the edge of your dream, swallows circling the pylon's crown in the pink hush before sunrise, and you surface from sleep slowly, as though the night itself were reluctant to release you. Your limbs feel heavy, pleasantly so, as if bricks have traded places with your bones, but the warmth of dawn seeps through linen and persuades joints to bend. You sit up, hair mussed like a startled ibis, and the view greets you with quiet majesty, Karnak's towers blushing gold, river mist strolling lazily between palm silhouettes, and a single fishing skiff slicing the water so smoothly the wake looks painted rather than real. Peace like this tastes sweet as pomegranate, but Egypt rarely lets sweetness linger unchallenged. There's always a subtle hook buried in the honey. Today's hook arrives in the form of a messenger boy sprinting up the stairs 2 at a time, sandals slapping sandstone. He bows, panting, and holds out a clay tablet sealed with green wax, urgent summons from the royal workshop. You break the seal. Inside, hurried cuneiform lists a new crisis, shipments of copper chisels from Sinai stalled by bandit raids, carving crews idle, deadlines snarling. The overseer requests your counsel. Your reputation for improvisation apparently echoes even beyond brick pits. You sigh, stretch creaky shoulders, and feel the old thrill ignite again. Retirement, it seems, is a mirage. You tie sandals, snag your cedar staff, and stride through Thebes' morning maze of spice stalls and goat bleats toward the workshop district. There, a cloud of frustration clings over rows of half-chiseled relief blocks. Artists sit cross-legged, useless chisels dull as butter knives, scratching idle sketches in dust. The overseer greets you with a bow that feels half-desperate. Supply caravans may take weeks. A stalled temple wall means priestly ire, which cascades into court scolding, which trickles down onto every back in the chain. You study tools, tap one. Edge blunted, true, but the iron core still solid. Inspiration strikes, obsidian trade beads from land of Punt, napped edges keen as moonlight on glass. Hard to haft, brittle, but polished properly they bite sandstone like hungry beetles. You pitch the idea. The overseer's brow rises, risk is high, but alternative is waiting, which is its own hazard. He gives the nod. You dispatch runners to gem cutters, instruct smiths to warm beeswax and copper wire for makeshift handles. Within hours, artisans test the first obsidian adze hybrids on scrap blocks. Sparks of black glass powder twinkle, and grooves emerge crisp as a falcon feather. Workers cheer. Hook lands. Ingenuity under pressure pays better than copper. Of course, obsidian edges shatter if struck wrong. You organize brief lessons: angle, pressure, rhythm, soft, soft, sure. Teaching again, you feel younger as students mirror each tip with hungry eyes. By sunset, 3 relief panels progress. The high priest himself appears, trailing myrrh perfume, inspects edges with raised eyebrow, then claps once in approval. Crisis delays shrink from months to mere weeks. Your chest hums, but fatigue drapes over shoulders like lead-lined linen. You wander home beneath a violet sky salted with early stars, feet dragging yet spirit buoyant. Night's lullaby finds you sooner than usual, but dreams flutter restless. Obsidian splinters morph into black-winged ibis pecking at half-carved hieroglyphs, chisels bend into serpents, deadlines hiss names. You wake before dawn, pulse staccato. Anxiety in Egypt can ride you harder than any camel. Leaning over the parapet, you breathe lotus-scented air, watch fishermen cast nets shaped like full moons, and let the Nile's rhythm slow your heart. Another hidden secret of survival: let the river recalibrate your tempo when thoughts gallop too fast. Days blend into a new cadence, obsidian deliveries at sunrise, chisel upkeep at noon, relief inspections at dusk. Each shard slice sings a high crystalline pitch, a strange choir, yet soothing in its predictability. The high priest, pleased, gifts you a small alabaster jar of honey spiked with cinnamon, liquid sun for stiff mornings. You dip flatbread, savor sweetness, and chuckle at the irony, spicy honey to coat a life once planned as dull as mud bricks. 3 moons later, a copper convoy finally limps through city gates, battered but intact. Smiths whoop, artisans salute with chisels raised, yet many insist on keeping their obsidian tools, lighter, they say, more graceful. Innovation outlives crisis, another quiet triumph. The overseer arranges a banquet in your honor: roast gazelle, cucumbers steeped in vinegar, wine cooled in porous jars buried overnight. Laughter crackles through torchlight, someone composes a silly song about the glass-edged chief, and you laugh until cheeks ache. In that glow you notice an apprentice, barely 20, eyes bright as new copper, sketching your laughter lines into clay for practice. Legacy, captured in wet earth. Days blend into a new cadence, obsidian deliveries at sunrise, chisel upkeep at noon, relief inspections at dusk. Each shard slice sings a high crystalline pitch, a strange choir, yet soothing in its predictability. The high priest, pleased, gifts you a small alabaster jar of honey spiked with cinnamon, liquid sun for stiff mornings. You dip flatbread, savor sweetness, and chuckle at the irony, spicy honey to coat a life once planned as dull as mud bricks. 3 moons later, a copper convoy finally limps through city gates, battered but intact. Smiths whoop, artisans salute with chisels raised, yet many insist on keeping their obsidian tools, lighter, they say, more graceful. Innovation outlives crisis, another quiet triumph. The overseer arranges a banquet in your honor: roast gazelle, cucumbers steeped in vinegar, wine cooled in porous jars buried overnight. Laughter crackles through torchlight, someone composes a silly song about the glass-edged chief, and you laugh until cheeks ache. In that glow you notice an apprentice, barely 20, eyes bright as new copper, sketching your laughter lines into clay for practice. Legacy, captured in wet earth. But as every Egyptian knows, honor attracts envy like honey draws flies. Rumors slither, whispers that you command budgets too freely, that your prestige threatens traditional hierarchies. One dusk, a papyrus tacked to your door accuses you of misappropriating temple funds, a blatant lie, yet venomous. You burn it without hesitation, but the smoke stings more than cedar chips. Reputation here is fragile glass, and you can almost sense a hook shaped like scandal lurking beyond night's edge. Sure enough, summons arrive, appear before the vizier's council. You dress in best linen, lapis amulet at throat, stride into a chamber heavy with incense and skepticism. The vizier, a hawk-nosed man whose robes whisper richer than priestly chants, questions expenses, demands clarity on obsidian procurement, suggests kickbacks. You counter calmly, present tallies inked by neutral scribes, list names of every craftsman verifying quality. The room shifts, suspicion thins. Finally, a junior scribe unrolls the ledger of copper caravans, shows surplus silver left untouched, cross-checked thrice. The vizier's eyes narrow, lips thin, then he grunts approval, charges dismissed. Outside, sunlight feels suddenly sweeter. Yet seeds of stress sprout aches in shoulders, headaches behind eyes. You realize that surviving Egypt isn't only bricks and floods, it's politics, egos, shadows. That night you retreat to the roof earlier than usual, armed with reed flute gifted long ago. Breath through the flute releases tension like sand pouring from a jar. Notes float above slumbering courtyards, weaving with cricket chirps. Somewhere a baby quiets, maybe soothed by melody you barely control. Hooks can heal as well as hurt. Another season folds open, Nile flood recedes. You accept fewer emergency gigs, focus on mentoring. Apprentices gather at dawn for brick chief's lessons, scribbling diagrams of arch stress points, humidity tricks, mortar mixes laced with prickly pear juice for extra adhesion. You insist on story breaks, how a collapsed silo taught you to read rat nests as structural warnings, how a desert mirage once fooled an entire caravan into circling back to its starting dune. They laugh, they learn, and you feel yourself pouring intangible mortar between generations. Yet even teaching carries peril. One breezy twilight, while demonstrating scaffold safety, a frayed rope snaps and a plank tilts. Your reflexes, slower now, fail to skip aside, wood clips your shin, sends you sprawling. Pain flares white-hot, apprentices rush, hoist you down. The legs not broken but badly bruised, skin peeled in an ugly stripe. They splint, bind with honey and linen, Egypt's timeless first aid, but irritation throbs. Immobilized, you must rest, or rather, attempt rest while mind whirls. The enforced pause becomes unfamiliar territory. No dawn bustle, no tool clang, just the hush of convalescence. You lie on a shaded couch, watch dust motes spin sunbeams, listen to city hum distantly. Days drift, breezes carry gossip, and you discover stillness as a new craft. The hook here is patience. Can a lifelong builder erect calm inside his own skull? You practice deep breathing, picturing each inhale lifting kiln heat toward sky, each exhale sinking tension into earth. You remember priests chanting to lull gods, you hum softly, low drone that vibrates ribs, and sleep finds you easier. Apprentices visit, delivering scrolls of progress, asking advice. You instruct from cushions, draw diagrams one-handed, and realize leadership doesn't always climb ladders, sometimes it whispers from a doorway. Slowly, leg heals. First timid steps, then firmer. As strength returns, you stroll nightly along the riverbank, leaning on cedar staff. Moon reflection ripples, broken by fish kisses. You pass lovers murmuring vows, herders watering goats, scribes reciting poetry to practice cadence. Egypt's pulse beats steady, regardless of individual aches. One evening, you spot an old friend, the potter drafted to Tura Quarry long ago, limping toward you. His beard snow-white, eyes still spark. You share bread on a stone bench, swap stories. He survived quarry duty, married, lost a child to fever, shaped funerary urns for nobles. He says your brick villages saved many from floods. You accept the compliment like cool water. He presses a small glazed figurine into your palm, two workers lifting a brick together. For memory, he smiles. You clutch the gift, warmth blooming behind ribs. Time edges forward. The great pylon weathers storms, stands firm. Relief walls gleam with finished scenes of pharaoh smiting chaos. Obsidian lines look sharp after years. You wander markets, purchase a faintly cracked blue faience bowl. Merchant jokes it's flawed, you answer flaws make stories. He laughs, adds a sprig of mint free. Later, sipping mint tea on roof, you realize story is almost full circle. 1 star thick night, you dream of your first day in Egypt, all heat and nervous wonder. But in the dream you're ghost watching younger self, guiding him, nudging when he nearly drinks unsafe water, whispering scaffold tips. At dawn you wake with tear tracks dried on cheeks, heart soft. Maybe time itself is scaffolding, and older you just steadied younger you from afar. An idea sparks, write your lessons on papyrus, not for vanity, but so future builders can dodge old mistakes. You purchase quills, grind soot, begin dictating memories, how beer prevented dehydration, how onions warded evil eyes and boredom alike, how obsidian chisels rescued reliefs, how patience smoothed politics sharper than flails. The manuscript grows, apprentices copy passages, adding sketches. The high priest hears, requests a copy for temple library, knowledge as eternal offering. Years settle like gentle sandfall. Your gait slows but spirit stays brisk. On a final winter solstice, city priests invite you to witness dawn's first beam spearing through new temple corridor you once advised. At that precise moment, when sunlight paints stone corridor gold white, they will recite prayers for builders past and living. You accept, heart thudding mild excitement. 1 star thick night, you dream of your first day in Egypt, all heat and nervous wonder. But in the dream you're ghost watching younger self, guiding him, nudging when he nearly drinks unsafe water, whispering scaffold tips. At dawn you wake with tear tracks dried on cheeks, heart soft. Maybe time itself is scaffolding, and older you just steadied younger you from afar. An idea sparks, write your lessons on papyrus, not for vanity, but so future builders can dodge old mistakes. You purchase quills, grind soot, begin dictating memories, how beer prevented dehydration, how onions warded evil eyes and boredom alike, how obsidian chisels rescued reliefs, how patience smoothed politics sharper than flails. The manuscript grows, apprentices copy passages, adding sketches. The high priest hears, requests a copy for temple library, knowledge as eternal offering. Years settle like gentle sandfall. Your gait slows but spirit stays brisk. On a final winter solstice, city priests invite you to witness dawn's first beam spearing through new temple corridor you once advised. At that precise moment, when sunlight paints stone corridor gold white, they will recite prayers for builders past and living. You accept, heart thudding mild excitement. Before dawn, escorted by torch bearers, you enter the cool corridor. Stone smells of dust and incense. You sit on a reed stool placed for you alone. Whispered chants bounce off walls, pulse in bones. Silence thickens, horizon pinks. Then, like a god's eyelid lifting, sunlight spills down the channel, striking carved falcon wings, then sliding to rest on your stool. Warmth floods knees, chest, face. Tears brim unbidden, sun praising bricklayers, stone dreamers, you. The priest intones a blessing for the one who taught mud to dream of pylon heights. Your name echoes, gentle thunder in heart. When ceremony ends, you walk outside, supported by apprentices turned masters. The air tastes like fresh bread. You inhale, exhale, and feel finished, but not empty. More like a kiln after firing, heat subsiding, vessel complete. That night you climb home roof slower than ever. Stars glitter. You lie down, lapis amulet cool on chest, obsidian flute beside pillow. The city's lullaby envelopes, distant drums, soft donkey bray, murmur of Nile. You close eyes, whisper thanks, to brick that never crumbled, to sun that never spared, to river that never quit, to every hook, fear, triumph, patience, grief, that kept the story turning pages. Breath grows steady, deeper. Heart slows to Nile cadence. Above, Orion keeps loyal watch, below, Thebes dreams. And wrapped in history's long, warm embrace, longer than 15,000 words, longer than lifetimes, you let consciousness drift like a lotus petal on dark water, carried gently toward the endless, peaceful horizon of sleep. The breeze settles across your face like a mother's quiet hand, and in that soft hush you feel a question hanging in the air. How does a life steeped in bricks and sunstones end when the body finally asks to rest? Egypt, true to habit, answers with ritual, beautiful, complicated, and stitched with tiny surprises to keep a soul's eyes open all the way to eternity. The notion begins one afternoon when your oldest apprentice, now foreman of a bustling kiln crew, kneels before you with a reed basket lined in linen. Inside rests a single, unpainted Ashabdi figurine, no taller than a finger, carved from leftover limestone dust and gum. "Master," he says, voice trembling between pride and sadness, "tradition starts now. While you still breathe, we craft the helpers who'll serve you beyond the western horizon." You turn the little statue over in stiff fingers, run a thumb along the blank face, and feel a shiver of recognition. This tiny stone will one day plow ghostly fields in your stead, if the prayers etched upon it are true. Yet for now, it is simply warm from his hands and fragrant with fresh mortar, a child's clay doll waiting for stories. He leaves you with a satchel of similar blanks. Each evening, under oil lamp glow, you softly carve a new sigil, a tiny hoe, a palm basket, a water jug, engraving your name in the narrow band that circles every waist. The work is slow, meditative, and strangely thrilling. Another hook, though this one pulls inward instead of out. Time stretches, quiet, but every scrape of chisel releases a memory. Your rooftop becomes a small archive of sighs and smiles, and the figurines pile like white petals around your feet. Weeks pass. Your joints, forever faithful, start whispering sharper protests, so apprentices carry you down city steps to a courtyard garden thick with myrtle and jasmine. There, priests of Anubis teach you how to read the negative confession aloud, 42 declarations of innocence you'll need when standing before the scale of Ma'at. You find it oddly comforting to rehearse moral ledgers like brick tallies. I have not stolen bread, I have not caused tears, I have not diverted river water from my neighbor's fields. Each statement feels like smoothing mortar over cracks you didn't notice before. In spare moments you watch children spin tops made of date pits, their laughter rattling like ivory beads. You sip watered beer, fewer bubbles now, easier on the gut, and let memories unwrap themselves like linen strips loosening from a mummy's smile. Remember the first time you touched Nile's silt and thought it soft as butter? Remember the night obsidian tools cut sandstone into song? Remember how a single heartbeat under a collapsing log taught you more about gratitude than 100 sermons? The recollections settle around you, a feather-light cloak, and you sense the feather of Maat drifting nearer, testing weight. Word reaches you that a new plague flickers south of Elephantine. Instead of dread, you feel a calm sadness, like watching dusk swallow a familiar archway, inevitable, simple. You ask to be carried to the pylon one last time. The climb is slow, the sandstone steps remember your feet and seem to glow faintly with each touch, as if greeting an old friend. Reaching the summit, you gaze east, where dawn's memory still stains the edge of sky rose gold. Below, barges move like silent beetles on the blue silk of the river, nets sparkle, and the pylon's giant shadow stretches thin and sharp, pointing toward the distant necropolis. You rest your palm on the capstone. Warm. Steady. And in that contact a promise passes between you and the stone, neither of you will collapse as long as the other stands watch. After the descent, craftsmen present a final gift, a narrow funerary stela etched with your life's core glyphs: brick, sun, river, heart. They've inlaid the lines with crushed yawns so the carvings gleam cerulean, tiny rivers of sky water captured in limestone. You run fingertips across the cool channels, feel a pulse in them that might be your own or Egypt's. The stone will anchor a modest tomb near the workers' village, they tell you, so stories of floods averted and roofs raised echo close to the bricks you birthed. Nights grow cooler. You wrap in a wool shawl the color of dried lotus leaves and find you doze sooner, dream longer. Dreams paint vast reed marshes bathed in starlight where you drift in a narrow papyrus skiff, pole in hand, and your tiny Ashabdi crew rows merrily beside, chattering like children, eager for your next command. You wake with damp lashes, half laughing, half aching, and whisper thanks to whatever benevolent scribe of destiny writes such comforting scenes. After the descent, craftsmen present a final gift, a narrow funerary stela etched with your life's core glyphs: brick, sun, river, heart. They've inlaid the lines with crushed yawns so the carvings gleam cerulean, tiny rivers of sky water captured in limestone. You run fingertips across the cool channels, feel a pulse in them that might be your own or Egypt's. The stone will anchor a modest tomb near the workers' village, they tell you, so stories of floods averted and roofs raised echo close to the bricks you birthed. Nights grow cooler. You wrap in a wool shawl the color of dried lotus leaves and find you doze sooner, dream longer. Dreams paint vast reed marshes bathed in starlight where you drift in a narrow papyrus skiff, pole in hand, and your tiny Ashabdi crew rows merrily beside, chattering like children, eager for your next command. You wake with damp lashes, half laughing, half aching, and whisper thanks to whatever benevolent scribe of destiny writes such comforting scenes. One twilight, as Orion blinks awake, you request an ostrakhan and ink. Your hand trembles, but the reed pen knows the dance. You write a short note, plain language, no flourish, addressed to anyone who might find it centuries hence. You tell them bricks are humble but brave, they bear weight without complaint and store sunlight for cold nights. You suggest they treat each other like bricks, fit firmly, hold strong, let mortar of kindness seal the spaces between. You finish with a joke about scorpions rejecting rent after their tails dull. You sign your name, dab it dry, tuck the shard under the lapis amulet on your chest. Morning arrives draped in soft gray cloud, a rare sky for Thebes. You breathe in coolness that smells faintly of rain and newly turned earth. The nurse brings onion broth, you sip slow, almost tasting every field that fed those bulbs. Outside, builders chant as they lift beams, their voices rumble gentle, lulling. Your eyelids droop. You surrender to the pillow, heart drumming slower than temple drums at dawn. Somewhere between breaths, a hush so deep opens that even thought feels like an echo. You sense figures gathering, motherly gods with winged arms, your apprentices in linen fresh as sunrise, old friends carrying baskets of stories. The Ushabtis scurry into ranks, tools raised. You hear a final hook, a quiet invitation, pulling not toward danger, but toward rest. Your lips curve, barely, and you exhale, once, twice. Time in Egypt bends. The nurse leans close, waits, listens. Silence settles like drifting sand. She covers your face with linen, murmuring a prayer that your heart prove lighter than the feather, that fields of reeds welcome your step, that the river of stars bear you gently. Soon torches flicker along narrow streets as news passes mouth to ear, the brick chief has sailed west. People pause, potters, scribes, herders, tilt heads to sky as if they might glimpse your bark already riding Orion's belt. In workshops, chisels rest upright in clay, a tribute. Priests mix aromatic resins. The pylon stands firm, capstone still warm where your hand once lay, shadow pointing now toward the lush horizon of afterlife. And somewhere beyond mortal dusk, perhaps in a dawn stitched with violet and gold, you stride fields where wheat stands taller than men, where water jars never empty, where bricks stack themselves eager to build. Ushabtis sing work songs cheerful as birds, the sun smiles but never burns, the Nile winds silver, free of crocodiles. You glance over endless horizon, feel no weight save simple wonder, and you laugh, light, clear, the sound of a trowel ringing true on fresh stone. Back in Thebes, night deepens. The city exhales, comforted. And as our tale folds shut like a well-worn papyrus, its last whisper drifts to you, dear listener, wherever you lie, breathe easy. Let the river rhythm of this ancient land guide your pulse. Let the bricks of these words stack gently around your thoughts, sealing worries away. Sleep now under the vigilant gaze of stars that watched empires rise and rest. Sleep, and wake, whenever you wish, feeling lighter than any feather, stronger than any sun-baked wall, ready to build your own quiet wonders come morning. Somewhere in the reed-scented hush beyond the living Nile, your soul steps onto a shoreline woven of silver dust. The air here has weight like satin, soft yet substantial, and each breath feels like sipping moonlight melted into water. In the distance, papyrus barges drift without oars, guided only by the faint pulse of cosmic tides. Their sails glow pale turquoise, full even though no wind stirs. Farther still, a range of low hills rises, a silhouette the color of old charcoal, but rimmed in turquoise fire as if dawn hides just behind every peak. You take a single step, half curious, half cautious, and sand grains underfoot chirp tiny notes, welcoming you like crickets greeting dusk. A procession greets you, your little limestone Ushabti army, lined in two neat ranks, each figurine now as tall as a child and painted in bright lapis robes. They bow in unison, their stone tools glinting with impossible reflections, obsidian edges catching starlight that isn't present, copper fittings shining despite no flame. One steps forward, its blank face now etched with gentle eyes. In a voice like lidless jars opening, it says, "Master, the fields are ready. Shall we begin?" You smile, an instinct older than questions, and nod once. The army pivots, marching down a sloping path cut by glowing beetles that pause to light the way, shells flickering like tiny hearths. The path threads between lotus pools so wide they swallow the horizon, each blossom bigger than a chariot wheel and exhaling a faint hum, almost like temple chants slowed to a heartbeat's pace. You lean closer to one bloom, its petals ripple with swirling images, flashes of kiln fires, cedar logs, children laughing under reed roofs. Memories captured in layers of scent and color, floating out to greet you in silence. One petal shivers loose, drifts toward you, settles on your shoulder, leaving warmth that seeps down through bone until every old ache softens into nothing. You reach a gate fashioned from two colossal bricks, each the height of a watchtower, set upright like open book covers. Their surfaces shimmer, inscribed not with hieroglyphs but with your own footprints pressed deep and aglow. Passing between them is like stepping through your life story, footfalls clicking into memories that slot behind you, safe, complete. On the other side spreads the field of reeds, but magnified beyond mortal imagining. Barley stalks as tall as temple pylons sway under a sky painted with flowing constellations that move gently, as though the stars themselves are reeds bending in celestial breezes. The Ushabti pause, awaiting command. You reach out, not with voice but with thought, and they scatter, each one finding its task. Some smooth irrigation ditches that fill instantly with water clear as polished quartz. Others lift baskets of invisible seed that spark when they touch soil, sprouting into stalks already golden and ripe. It feels both like work and play, no muscle strain, no back sweat, yet everything happens in a hum of purposeful joy. You reach a gate fashioned from two colossal bricks, each the height of a watchtower, set upright like open book covers. Their surfaces shimmer, inscribed not with hieroglyphs but with your own footprints pressed deep and aglow. Passing between them is like stepping through your life story, footfalls clicking into memories that slot behind you, safe, complete. On the other side spreads the field of reeds, but magnified beyond mortal imagining. Barley stalks as tall as temple pylons sway under a sky painted with flowing constellations that move gently, as though the stars themselves are reeds bending in celestial breezes. The Ushabti pause, awaiting command. You reach out, not with voice but with thought, and they scatter, each one finding its task. Some smooth irrigation ditches that fill instantly with water clear as polished quartz. Others lift baskets of invisible seed that spark when they touch soil, sprouting into stalks already golden and ripe. It feels both like work and play, no muscle strain, no back sweat, yet everything happens in a hum of purposeful joy. You wander onward, guided by soft hexagonal paving stones that appear just before each step. To your left, a low ridge reveals a river, not the Nile but a silver twin, reflecting galaxies rather than clouds. On its bank, ghostly crocodiles lounge. They nod as you pass, friendly as old neighbors. One slides into the river, rippling starlight which laps against the shore in gentle waves that sound like distant drums, your kiln songs reborn as water music. Ahead, an acacia blooms with lamps instead of leaves, tiny oil flames dancing inside each green pod. Beneath the canopy waits a worktable carved from desert glass, edges rounded like well-used trowels. On it rests a fresh brick, soft, unbaked, glowing from within as though it holds sunrise. Next to it, a reed pen and jar of ink shimmer with color you can't quite name, something between emerald and laughter. An unseen voice, maybe the acacia, maybe the wind, whispers, one last line, builder. You understand. Write your own closing blessing to seal this realm as you once sealed rooftop tiles. You dip the pen, the ink catches thought more than motion. With simple strokes, you inscribe a message. May every traveler find gentle shade, steady walls, and water that remembers the taste of stars. The brick glows brighter, bonds fuse without heat, and then lift slowly, slotting into an unseen wall that curves away in both directions, endless. Your words, your work, become part of an eternal structure, an afterlife temple as quiet as sleep and as durable as love. A hush follows, profound, weightless. The Ashabti gather at your side, tools lowered. You feel no need to move further. The landscape itself rolls on, infinite, ready whenever curiosity stirs. For now you sink onto a cushion of reed grass that molds to your shape like clouds around the moon. The sky above dims to deep indigo, jewel-sprinkled. A warm breeze sighs across barley heads, carrying smells of oven-fresh bread, cedar resin, and river mist. Your eyelids flutter. Even souls grow sleepy when peace runs this deep. Just before drifting off, you sense a ripple beyond the cosmic fields, a subtle cord tying eternity to mortal lands. There, somewhere in beds far from Egypt, modern dreamers press play on bedtime stories, yearning for calm. You offer them the quiet you feel now, letting it flow down that cord in slow pulses. In rooms lit only by phone screens and hopes of rest, they inhale your gift, exhale their tension, and slip toward dreams of golden reeds and gentle rivers. The cycle completes. A brick laid here strengthens a wall there, across lifetimes, across worlds. Satisfied, you close your eyes. Stars blur into a soft white hush, like lotus petals falling in slow motion. The field of reeds hushes, the Ashabti hum lullabies learned from your own rooftop nights, and the silver river dims to a single shining thread, weaving through your final thought, rest, simple, perfect, endless. A murmur rises along the horizon, less a sound than a flicker of color, soft bronze sweeping up like dawn painted sideways. Your senses, newly attuned to every whisper of this tranquil realm, register it as change, the quiet promise that even perfection likes to shift its weight now and then. You open dream-heavy eyes and find yourself no longer on the feathergrass cushion but seated upon a slow-moving barge of woven papyrus, gliding down the silver river. No oars, no poles, yet the skiff obeys some silk-thread current only souls can feel. On either bank the golden barley has grown taller, tassels brushing the lowered moon, releasing grains that drift in the air like sleepy fireflies. Each grain settles onto the barge's deck, vanishes with a tiny pop, and leaves behind a scent of warm bread. The Ashabdi stand at prow and stern, humming a rhythm that mingles with the hush of ripples, a work song so subdued it sounds like gentle snoring. You lean back against bundled linen cushions and let your fingers trail the river surface. It is cool, not cold, slippery as liquid jade. Where your fingertips cut arcs, faint hieroglyphs blossom, brief flashes of duck and sun disk, eye and tethering rope, before dissolving into drifting star specks. An islet approaches, clothed entirely in date palms whose fronds sway slowly though no breeze stirs. The barge edges close, and you step onto sand soft as sifted flour. The Ashabdi remain aboard, saluting with little adzas, promising to await your return. Among the palms you notice stone benches half sunken in flowering moss the color of twilight. Each bench bears a shallow basin cut into its seat, filled not with water but with vivid scenes playing like tiny theater stages. You sit before one. Images blossom, young masons practicing the snap of reed lines, a girl giggling as she daubs wet clay on her brother's nose, an old quarryman carving a shell fossil from chalk and tucking it into his pouch. These are fragments of long-ago days, small slices of living that never made it onto temple walls. You watch them as though gazing into clear well water, and instead of nostalgia you feel a gentle completeness. Every moment you once deemed trivial has come to rest here, polished by time into miniature jewels. When you rise, the images pause, as if waiting for your next viewing. You press your palm to the bench in thanks, and a fine network of light etches your handprint into the stone, sealing memory to memory. As you step away, the scenes resume, now laced with new colors. Perhaps your touch gifted them a tint of present wonder. Farther in, a clearing opens around a low shrine built of bricks so familiar you know them by weight without lifting, sun-dried, straw-flecked, edges smoothed by countless dawns. Inlaid in their seams are chips of turquoise glass, obsidian slivers, and crushed shell lime, making the walls shimmer like river water at noon. You feel a tug, recognition. These are bricks your apprentices fashioned from leftover batches during late afternoons when light turned gold and conversation turned playful. They must have slipped them onto wagons, saved them, dreaming of this shrine long before it found you. Now it stands waist-high, open to sky, shaped like a doorway too small for the living, perfect for thought to pass through. When you rise, the images pause, as if waiting for your next viewing. You press your palm to the bench in thanks, and a fine network of light etches your handprint into the stone, sealing memory to memory. As you step away, the scenes resume, now laced with new colors. Perhaps your touch gifted them a tint of present wonder. Farther in, a clearing opens around a low shrine built of bricks so familiar you know them by weight without lifting, sun-dried, straw-flecked, edges smoothed by countless dawns. Inlaid in their seams are chips of turquoise glass, obsidian slivers, and crushed shell lime, making the walls shimmer like river water at noon. You feel a tug, recognition. These are bricks your apprentices fashioned from leftover batches during late afternoons when light turned gold and conversation turned playful. They must have slipped them onto wagons, saved them, dreaming of this shrine long before it found you. Now it stands waist-high, open to sky, shaped like a doorway too small for the living, perfect for thought to pass through. You kneel, run a thumb along a familiar fingerprint pressed into one brick surface, your own, 30 harvests ago. The print glows, then the whole doorway churns with soft radiance, spilling slow curls of sandalwood-tinged mist. From within emerges a single feather, pure white with edges dipped in soft indigo. It drifts, lands on your palm, impossibly weightless. You know it at once, the feather of Ma'at, symbol of balance you once feared to face. Yet in this quiet hour, its presence feels like a lullaby. You bow your head, and a hush envelopes the grove. A voice you cannot place, part wind, part heartbeat, whispers, the measure was taken long ago. You travel light. The feather dissolves into a flurry of tiny sparks that swirl around you, then sink into every brick of the shrine, sealing it brighter. You breathe out, slowly, as though letting go of the last brittle shard of worry hidden in some forgotten corner of your chest. When you return to the riverbank, the barge is waiting. The Ashabdi's hum shifts into a pleased trill at your approach. You board. The skiff resumes its journey, curving through broad water meadows where lilies blossom in spirals, their petals opening and closing like quiet inhalations. Each exhalation releases perfume so soft it feels like the weightlessness right before sleep. Time no longer moves in straight lines, moments lap one over another like gentle waves against hull reeds. Hours, or seconds, later, the skiff glides beneath an arch woven of flame lilies. Their petals flicker in hues of dusky gold, and they shed pollen motes that shine like candle sparks. They dust your hair and shoulders, do not scorch, only warm. Suddenly you recall the nighttime kiln glow, that fierce embracing heat, except here the warmth is lull, not labor. The memory and the moment blend, double exposing a photo even dream eyes can see, and you accept that comfort and toil are only different verses of the same work song. The skiff coasts toward a great mirror still as polished bronze. It is water, yet so unmoving that sky and stars seem to rest upon a sheet of glass. The boat halts. The Ashabdi fall silent. Instinct tells you this is threshold, though of what you cannot tell. You lean over the gunwale. Your reflection stares back, features softened by years and yet gleaming with calm vigor. As you look, the mirror deepens. Scenes shimmer beneath the surface, the capital harbor at sunrise, the quarry cliffs at dusk, a roof under endless constellations. But they are not nostalgia now, they have become patterns threading together, like colored twines braided tight. Where once you saw separate beads of life, you now see necklace, unbroken, complete. A hush of wing beats above draws your eyes upward. Huge ibis sweep across the mirrored lake, wings leaving luminous trails. One breaks formation, circles, and drops a slender reed roll that lands upright in your lap. Curious, you unfurl it. Inside, a single line glows, every dwelling is stronger for the songs laid in its walls. Beneath, a tiny glyph shows two bricks pressed together with a sprouting reed between, life rooted in structure. You smile at the message, feel it settle like mortar against heart's inner walls. The ibis wheeling above emits soft croaks and drift away. The mirror lake ripples just once, then returns to stillness. A new current nudges the skiff's hull, the Ushabti lift their tools and begin a fresh song, low and steady, the sort of tune brickmakers hum when mixing straw and silt. The boat turns. Slowly it heads back upstream, or perhaps downstream. Directions have become moot. You realize the journey could loop forever, each bend yielding new revelations gentle as rainfall on lotus leaves. And that feels right, eternity not as endless marathon but as meandering path where discovery and rest dance, trading footfalls like friends. The barge sidles to a silver sandbar adorned with fire pots that glow amber. You step ashore, sensing that sleep within sleep awaits, dream folded again upon itself to cradle all remaining edges. The Ushabti bow low, their chorus hushes to a final hum no louder than a moth wing's brush. Then skiff and crew glide away, lantern glow fading until river and stars blend to one deep quilt of charcoal blue. You perch beside a fire pot, warmth licking ankles, and gaze up. Constellations slide overhead like slow oars paddling night's river. They arrange themselves into shapes you hadn't noticed before, a trowel pouring golden stars into a wall outline, a reed pen sketching spiral galaxies, a brick stacking itself upon a comet. The sky telling your trade in universal grammar. You chuckle, content. The fire dims. Embers settle. Their glow matches the drowse settling behind your eyes. The sand molds supportive beneath, and the air weaves soft over you, tucking dreams under chin like a linen sheet. One final scent of cedar drifts by, foundation of so many beams you lifted, and it says without words, lay down your burdens, builder, the walls stand, the roof is sound, the night will hold. You release a breath so deep it feels like gently lowering the last load from weary shoulders. Lids grow heavy. Heart's drum slows to the ancient Nile cadence, for slow beats and a pause, for and a pause. Distance between thoughts lengthens until each is an island in warm mist. Soon there is only the quiet glow of dying embers painting eyelids amber, only the hush of reeds bending, only the knowledge that nothing left undone can disturb this perfect stillness. And as you slip across the unseen seam between awareness and its luminous twin, a final image glows behind closed eyes, not bricks or pylons or rivers, but a simple reed hut lit from within, shapes of laughing children projected on its walls. Every cornerstone of mastery began in such small shelters, you understand now. Greatness grows from humble warmth, spreads outward, upward, and eventually circles back to cradle others. You smile into the darkness, lighter than the feather tucked once into your palm. The hush deepens, wrapping itself around you like perfumed shadow. Somewhere, on earthly pillows, listeners who traveled this entire path with you sink into their own serene silence, hearts beat matching the Nile's old lullaby. You release a breath so deep it feels like gently lowering the last load from weary shoulders. Lids grow heavy. Heart's drum slows to the ancient Nile cadence, for slow beats and a pause, for and a pause. Distance between thoughts lengthens until each is an island in warm mist. Soon there is only the quiet glow of dying embers painting eyelids amber, only the hush of reeds bending, only the knowledge that nothing left undone can disturb this perfect stillness. And as you slip across the unseen seam between awareness and its luminous twin, a final image glows behind closed eyes, not bricks or pylons or rivers, but a simple reed hut lit from within, shapes of laughing children projected on its walls. Every cornerstone of mastery began in such small shelters, you understand now. Greatness grows from humble warmth, spreads outward, upward, and eventually circles back to cradle others. You smile into the darkness, lighter than the feather tucked once into your palm. The hush deepens, wrapping itself around you like perfumed shadow. Somewhere, on earthly pillows, listeners who traveled this entire path with you sink into their own serene silence, hearts beat matching the Nile's old lullaby. The hush curls even tighter, a velvet ribbon wrapping the edge of thought. And just when you believe there is no deeper stillness left to sink into, Egypt, patient and inexhaustible, cracks open one last chamber, quieter than any tomb, softer than any river bend at dawn. You have drifted beyond the mirror lake, beyond the fire-lit sandbar, yet somehow the journey keeps blooming new petals of calm. You find yourself walking through corridors made not of stone but of moving sand that whispers and rearranges itself with every step, always parting, never collapsing, an architecture of trust. Each grain sheds a faint glow, and together they cast a pale lantern light that guides your bare feet forward. There is no ceiling, yet overhead the desert night stretches like an enormous lidless eye, its pupil a swirl of galaxies watching without judgment. A warm draft, slow as an aged sigh, slides along the passage. With it drifts scents you have known all your life, sweet frankincense curling from festival braziers, nutty barley steaming in sunrise kettles, faint copper tang of freshly cut chisels. The aromas overlap, fade, return, merge, untangle, memory's own incense. Soon the sandy walls pull apart, revealing an underground atrium so wide it feels like the inside of a sleeping sphinx. The floor is a mosaic of tiny faience tiles, greens like river reeds, blues like midday sky, yellows like the yolk of festival cakes. Each tile bears a single hieroglyph in miniature, but instead of names of kings or boasts of battles, they show small verbs: to share, to mend, to carry, to laugh, to rest. With each step you place, the glyph beneath glimmers brighter then fades, as if recording your path in a secret log of gentle actions. At the atrium center rises a low plinth holding a jar, simple red Nile clay, unglazed, its lip chipped in one spot. Yet from its mouth a column of light pours upward, straight as a carpenter's plumb line, piercing the night like a quiet spear of moon water. You circle the jar, notice it hums faintly, a chord you once heard when kiln embers settled at perfect firing heat. Instinct nudges, this is where stories cool and harden into permanence. You kneel, touch the jar's side. It is warm, pulsing slow, matching the old river rhythm still beating in your chest. Without quite deciding, you lean close and exhale a single word into its hollow, peace. The light inside brightens, rises half a handspan taller, then settles again. Something has been accepted, perhaps a closing seal on your long tally of days. You step back, the jar's hum softens to a purr, content. A door appears at the atrium's far edge, reed matting draped across an archway framed by two narrow pillars of glowing alabaster. On each pillar sits a carved ibis, heads cocked, black beaks gleaming. They watch you approach with eyes calm as still water. As you pass between, their wings tremble once, scattering a faint shower of silver dust that lands on your shoulders like snow but melts into warmth. Beyond lies a veranda that opens onto a new stretch of water, not river, not lake, but a lagoon ringed by papyrus taller than any you've seen, heads crowned with constellations instead of seed clusters. The lagoon's surface reflects neither sky nor reeds. Instead it mirrors the pulse of your own heart, a gentle concentric ripple widening with every breath. You sit at the veranda's edge, legs dangling over water that is and is not water, and let silence bloom. Minutes, or eternities, pass. Then, across the lagoon, a faint ripple spreads. A shape emerges, a small craft, almost invisible, woven not from reeds but from pure starlight braided into hull form. At its bow stands a single figure robed in shimmering linen that flickers between night's richest indigo and dawn's first peach. You cannot see the face, it is the hush itself, wearing human outline for courtesy. The craft glides without wake until it rests before you. The figure speaks, voice low as a distant heartbeat. The clay is fired, the walls stand. Would you like to sleep? It is not a question that expects an answer in words. Your muscles answer, every fiber loosening in surrender. The figure gestures, the deck unfurls a couch of feathery rushes. You step aboard, lie down, feel the hull thrum as though tuned to the earth's oldest lullaby. The figure produces a thin reed flute, perhaps the twin of the one that once sang across your rooftops. Soft notes rise, four slow, one high, two fluttering low. They circle you like benevolent moths, spinning cocoons of quiet around mind and limb. Beyond the deck's rim, the lagoon dims, its surface turning opaque and calm, a slate wiped of ripple and reflection, inviting dreams' handwriting. The craft begins to drift, almost imperceptibly, following an unseen channel that curves through banks of perfumed darkness. Above, constellations reorganize into new diagrams. One moment they show a scaffold ascending to infinity, next they sketch a smiling brick turning into a full moon. The notes of the flute grow sparser, longer, until rest stretch wider than sound itself. You catch yourself reaching for the spaces between breaths, finding them filled with velvet. Each time you exhale, muscles melt a little more, and the deck seems to deepen, cradling you as a kiln cradles clay before it hardens right. Just as your thoughts thin to silver filaments, a final memory nudges forward, a midday long ago when a sun-blinded novice dropped a brick and wept, fearing punishment. You squatted beside him, placed the cracked brick in his small hands, and said, "See the fracture? That's the place light will get in when the wall glows at sunset." The boy's tears dried in wonder. Now that memory glows in you, tiny lamp in cave's heart, then gently flicks off, satisfied. The reed flute fades. The robed figure sets instrument aside, folds hands, and bows once. The bow carries meaning, permission to rest, assurance that all watchfulness will be kept in your stead. You close your eyes. Behind lids, warm darkness blossoms like temple incense, curling into the corners of your awareness until no edge is left unsoftened. The craft, the lagoon, the reeds, the atrium of glowing tiles, all slide backward into a single hush, the hush you have chased and tended and finally joined. Just as your thoughts thin to silver filaments, a final memory nudges forward, a midday long ago when a sun-blinded novice dropped a brick and wept, fearing punishment. You squatted beside him, placed the cracked brick in his small hands, and said, "See the fracture? That's the place light will get in when the wall glows at sunset." The boy's tears dried in wonder. Now that memory glows in you, tiny lamp in cave's heart, then gently flicks off, satisfied. The reed flute fades. The robed figure sets instrument aside, folds hands, and bows once. The bow carries meaning, permission to rest, assurance that all watchfulness will be kept in your stead. You close your eyes. Behind lids, warm darkness blossoms like temple incense, curling into the corners of your awareness until no edge is left unsoftened. The craft, the lagoon, the reeds, the atrium of glowing tiles, all slide backward into a single hush, the hush you have chased and tended and finally joined. Breath slips down to slow tides. Inhale, the faintest lift of chest. Exhale, an ebb shorter than a sigh. Muscles unhook from bone, bone releases memory of weight. Heartbeat whispers itself into the same rhythm as distant galactic pulses. Around you, the quiet shapes itself into gentle walls, strong as kiln bricks, light as feather kisses. And in the exact center of that sanctuary floats one last shining glyph, a simple horizontal ripple, water, life, the eternal unhurried flow. It pulses once, twice, then dims to restful ember. And here, in this boundless hush beyond hush, the story at last allows itself to fold closed, the papyrus gently rolled and sealed. No loose threads dangle, no hook remains. Only depthless peace, smooth as moonlit Nile water, silent as footprints in eternal sand. You drift on in that limitless hush until even drifting loses meaning. There is only poised stillness, like a feather lingering midair just before the earth remembers gravity. Then, somewhere far beyond the edges of closed eyelids, a single bell rings, not brass or bronze but crystalline, its tone pure as water striking polished jade. It doesn't startle, it slides through the silence like a soft beam of dawn slipping under a door, coaxing consciousness to unfurl again, but slowly, slowly, as petals respond to first light. Eyes open into a dim glow. You lie in a space that feels round, womb-like, its walls brushed with faint constellations that pulse whenever you breathe, as though the room inhales with you. Overhead floats a lantern shaped from translucent alabaster. Inside it burns no flame, merely a pearl of liquid brightness that waxes and wanes to the tempo of your heart. You sit, finding your body lighter, joints oiled by absolute rest. The floor is cool on bare sols, tiled in spiraling patterns of river blue and desert gold converging at your feet. You realize this chamber is neither temple nor tomb but a cradle fashioned for souls between journeys. From the periphery comes a flutter, papyrus scrolls unfurling themselves mid-air. Their sheets ripple like thin wings, lifting, looping, then settling into a loose ring around you. Each scroll emits a faint glow, glyphs scintillate across their lengths in living ink that shifts color with meaning, copper for memory, emerald for wisdom, lapis for wonder. One scroll drifts closer, halts before your face. Words blossom. Would you read what has been written? An unvoiced reply, perhaps only a pulse of curiosity, and the scroll turns, presenting blank parchment. The ink rises, poised like water bulging at lips' edge, waiting for thought. You understand, These scrolls record your dreamway, but they are hungry for the chapters yet unborn. A stylus of reed and quartz fades into your hand. You touch tip to parchment without planning, and lines pour out, not from mind exactly, but from a deeper current tugging beneath mind's roots. The glyphs flow. I have walked sun-baked brick paths that turn to silver dust in moonrise. I have felt the hush between hammer strikes blossom into eternity. I return not to build but to breathe stories into every wall that stands. The ink glows, then sinks into parchment, leaving letters that gleam like wet clay under fresh glaze. The scroll folds itself neatly, seals with a blazing turquoise bead, and joins an ascending spiral of other sealed tales, each drifting up to lodge in the star-rimmed ceiling where they twinkle beside familiar constellations. One by one the remaining scrolls float forward, fill with fresh verses, some memories you'd forgotten, some you never lived, some that belong to souls listening far away, borrowing calm. Writing feels effortless, your heartbeats become syllables, your breaths, punctuation. At last the ring of scrolls is complete, and every tale has found its astral niche, forming a new constellation shaped like two interlocking bricks, one etched with a reed pen, the other with a feather of Ma'at. A surge of warmth passes through you, recognition that your journey now lights the map for sleepers elsewhere, a beacon for any traveler seeking peace inside pages of night. The lantern above flares gently, then dims, signaling closure. And yet, beyond the chamber's curved threshold, you sense rustling, another corridor calling, lined perhaps with gardens or libraries or entire starfields folded into corridors of perfumes you've never smelled. Curiosity stirs, but alongside it, a river-slow reassurance: there is no urgency. Eternal spaces keep perfect time. You may step forward whenever wonder nudges, or you may sink back into slumber's sweet cradle and let new stories drift to you like lotus petals. Choice, here, is simply another flavor of rest. You exhale, tasting coolness tinged with pomegranate, and allow your body to recline upon a cushion that appears the instant you think soft. Fabrics mold around limbs like memory foam sculpted from cloud. The crystal bell rings again, a softer echo now, 3 notes descending, a lullaby's final cadence. Lids lower, that pearl of light overhead shrinks to a mere glowworm glimmer, then winks out, leaving only velvet dark threaded with star ink runes whispering the ever-steady mantra, "Hush now rest, hush now rest." Beyond mortal rooms, those who listen feel a synchrony, a gentle tug on the tide of their own breath, drawing them deeper into mattresses, hammocks, couches, subway seats, wherever exhaustion caught them. They do not know your name, but they recognize the cadence of safety folded into these words and let it weave over their minds like cool linen dipped in river water. Their pulses slow, their chests rise and fall like reeds swayed by unseen breezes. Somewhere, a phone screen dims, notifications silenced by pure fatigue finally granted permission. Somewhere else, a night nurse between rounds closes eyes for 60 blessed seconds and dreams of a pylon shimmering in dawn. And in the deep cradle of your hush-forged chamber, you drift once more, this time without story or hook or quest, only buoyant quiet. Thought feathers dissolve into dust of dream, dream dust settles into soft dunes of unknowing. There the builder rests, lighter than sandstone sanded by 1,000 kisses of wind, stronger than any wall because walls are rigid while rest is fluid, wrapping gently around all edges until none remain. You drift along the wagon line, senses sipping details, the woody musk of frankincense resin seeping through a cracked crate, the rustle of linen sacks bulging with glass beads from Zakazak, the creak of cedar planks exhaling a spice-sweet scent that mingles with the distant hint of baking bread. One driver catches you watching and chuckles, lifts a corner of canvas to reveal bulging baskets of dried figs drizzled with honey, provisions for the rest of his run to Memphis. He tosses one to you. It lands warm in your palm, syrup glistening where a bee stinger once punctured the flesh months ago. You take a bite, sweetness blooms, thick as lullaby. Even as flavor stirs alertness, sugar's gentle crash soon after will coax deeper sleep. Hook's clever trap, a treat for now, a ticket to drowsiness later. As first light brushes the farther pylons pink, the caravan nudges onward, leaving the way station behind. You follow for a stretch, feeling dawn's hush vibrate against skin. In an open square the oxen halt again so drovers may water animals at a stone trough. A water seller hauls buckets from a well, each bucket hitting water with a hollow slosh, each crank of the rope pulley screeching faintly like a desert hawk overhead. Drivers dip clay cups and toss back the well water, tepid, a little brackish, but life-giving. They splash the remainder over oxen flanks, steam ghosting into dawn. Hook, every sip and splash must be rationed, wells rest at precarious depths after floodwaters subside. Misjudge water levels, and next convoy could find itself stalled halfway to the border, eyeing mirages with cracked lips. You drift to a low-benched wall near the square's edge, sit, chew the rest of the figure a potter's boy hustles past with a tray of unfired bowls balanced on his head, still tacky from the wheel. One slip would collapse an entire breakfast's wage. He weaves through oxen tails, eyes focused, body swaying in countertime, and makes it unscathed. The vignette tugs another quiet thread. In this world even a child carries the weight of craft and consequence, and yet the rhythm of his steps falls so naturally your own pulse sinks again, heavier, slower. Behind you, shutters of a healer's house creak open. A woman in faded linen pours natron water from a pitcher onto the doorstep, symbolic washing away of last night's maladies. The liquid bubbles, then trickles along the gutter toward a drain carved in the likeness of Taurid, the hippo goddess guardian of birth. Tiny frogs, awakened by moisture, start a high staccato chorus, cheep, 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 like grains of sand bouncing on a copper sheet. Their song is strangely soothing, monotone enough to hypnotize. Hook here is humble but effective. Every lullaby in Egypt originates from real creatures' cyclical sounds, frogs at dawn, cicadas at dusk, sails flapping at noon. These natural metronomes hold power to tip eyelids heavy even when intrigue tugs them up. The healer herself emerges, stretches arms skyward, bones popping like distant quarry hammers, and she begins chanting a blessing to Sekhmet, lioness of plague and healing. Her voice drifts down the street, weaving with frog peeps. She smears coal under eyes, not for vanity but to deflect sun glare and infection. She sees you watching, nods knowingly, as though reading fatigue perched on your shoulders, and tosses a sprig of dried marsh mint your way. Chew at and peak. Keep sleep honest, she rasps. Another hook, the promise of midday clarity even as dawn lulls you deeper now. Sun edges higher, light spills like thick honey down building facades. Caravan wheels grind once more, drover's crack whips softly in the air, a sound more suggestion than strike. You feel the pull of rooftop cushion beckoning. You turn, retrace steps through alleys where morning ovens radiate bread warmth, where goat kids nuzzle grain sacks, where a single rooster now finally crows, late, perhaps chastened by human activity outrunning avian schedule. Its crow is brief, as though aware that excessive alarm might shatter the fragile hush clinging to this hour. Back up the stairway, onto your familiar rooftop, you sink onto cushions still holding ghost heat from earlier rest. Breath in roasted barley sweetness, breath out cedar musk faint on robes. The caravan's rumbles fade into distance, replaced by lazy flap of laundry catching first thermal currents. Eyes blur, fig sugar trickles into bloodstream then levels off, leaving drowsy calm. Hookless now, no looming inspection, no rattling jar, only steady lull of daily life continuing without crisis, a panorama of contentment. You sprawl onto back, stone warmth kisses spine, and sky today is a pale lapis wash with only the thinnest brushstrokes of cloud. A hawk circles high, nothing urgent in its pattern, simply riding invisible spirals. Below, an apprentice on another roof adjusts a sundial, its gnomon casting progressive shadow that ticks off moments slower than heartbeats. That rhythm seeps through skin, soon your own pulse drips seconds like honey off a slow spoon. Just before eyelids close fully, thought flicks once more to that single suspect incense jar set aside at way station. Somewhere a scribe will pry wax, sniff resin, judge worth. If spoiled, it will become fertilizer for temple gardens; if pure, it will smolder under goddess statues. Either fate feels balanced, correct. The entire city, you realize, thrives on such minute cycles of risk and reward, craft and critique, but underlying all is the same steady hush of people who have learned to coexist with sandstorms, floods, gods, and sleepless nights. That hush now flows into you like Nile water filling small irrigation channels, saturating every furrow of mind. You exhale long, slow, chest sinks. The rooftop's safe gravity anchors limbs, morning noises recede behind a curtain of soft static, breezes hiss through parapet cracks like librarians shushing talkers. The hawk's silhouette blurs. And at last sleep descends again, thick and cool, drawing a lid across mental lamp. Down in the square, bells and frogs, scribes and roosters continue their incremental ballet, but they dance now behind closed curtains of dream, muffled to the whirring hush of a ceiling fan you've never seen yet somehow hear. Everything is working as it should, commerce balancing, craftsmen crafting, priests praying, allowing you, weary traveler, to withdraw once more into the private chamber of rest where no hook need tug, no will need rattle, until your own sun decides to rise anew. Sleep, then, inside the low hum of ancient dawn. Let grain heaps settle, let incense jars reveal or rot without your witness. Let the desert breeze finish its lullaby begun before men measured time. Tomorrow, if you wish, you may follow the caravan out to the desert's edge or join the healers in chanting or learn to glaze faience to capture starshine in a frog's belly. But for now, there is only the rooftop, the distant hum, and the soft weight of eyelids sliding shut over well-traveled eyes. Sleep long, sleep deep, sleep until the next whisper of boring history stirs you gently awake. All is held. All is balanced. All is quiet. Sleep well, traveler. Egypt will keep watch till morning. Good night.